Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes Rias' personal bodyguard. Highschool DxD, Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Night. Unknown forest. In the densely packed forest, sounds of bugs buzzing around and swaying of the branches from the wind. This was the same pattern as any other day. Crack. Crack. Bang. Suddenly the space above the trees began to crack for a few moments before finally shattering, revealing nothing but pure darkness inside. Eh. Suddenly a young man's voice came out, screaming at the top of his lungs. Shit! I'm gonna die! Was the first words that came out of his mouth, though he was glad that he saw light, but was quickly replaced with fear as at the speed he was going at he knew he wouldn't survive. He closed his eyes waiting for the pain to come, though after a while nothing happened. As he wondered what happened, he slowly opened his eyes and was rendered speechless. His face was mere inches from touching the ground but was somehow floating in midair, which shouldn't be possible, defying the laws of physics like it was nothing just doesn't happen. By all accounts and at speeds rivaling terminal velocity, there should be nothing left of him intact. What the hell? As he tried to figure out what was going on. Though he didn't have to long to ponder on the matter. Thud. Off, OWCH, he muffled in pain as the floating effect wore off, as he face planted on the ground. As soon as the pain subsided, he quickly lifted himself up off the ground and looked at the surrounding woods. Where am I? As he tried to remember, nothing else came to mind. Though it's not like I have amnesia, I still remember everything else prior to that. As he tried to remember everything that happened. Flashback. The young man was Haru Hayashi, an orphan, at the age of 6 was adopted by the Hayashi family as their only son. Both his parents never could have a child themselves, so instead they adopted Haru and raised him as their own. He counted himself as lucky, being raised by such caring parents, so he strove to be the best son he could be to them, not trying to any problems for them. Though even as a kid he had his faults, not that they blamed him in the least, to which he honestly felt lucky for having such wonderful people. His mom worked as a nurse at a hospital in the inner city. It seemed she really liked helping people, and the people she treated had nothing but praises for her outstanding work. She also deeply cared about her family and spoke with her mom, cousins, uncles and aunts nearly every day despite how busy she was. She treated her friends and those close to her like family, a tradition that's been passed down in the Hayashi family for generations. This belief was also instilled in him, and he felt happy to be able to carry it on, and then one day passed this along to his family too. She seemed so happy and satisfied with her life, and that made Dad happy as well. His father worked as a professional photographer. He had nearly 20 years of experience in the field. Since back in the day he worked from black and white negatives to modern-day digital imagery and photo editing techniques. There were frames scattered all across the house with pictures of him and his parents, along with others that he took with during his early days as he traveled to exotic locations like volcanoes, remote villages and other countries, some of which even took him overseas. Over the years his dad told him stories about the places he visited and the people he met there, though most of it was telling him about the shenanigans that happened to him and his friends during those trips. Some of them he still stays in touch with to this day. He actually met Mom during one of his trips and the two immediately fell in love with each other. In a few months it would actually be their 20th anniversary. You can't imagine how excited Mom is for this, since Dad already made all the preparations for such a special occasion. But that's not important, so let's get on track, shall we? Haru was turning 14 this year. Nearly 6 years have gone by since they adopted him. He didn't care about his biological parents, nor was he interested in finding out the reason they abandoned him. In his opinion, his mom and dad were his true family, not those bastards who left him at the front door of a run-down orphanage. Always have, always will. He had short black hair and eyes with his hair slightly disheveled. Most likely his hair was messed up. He also had a few moles on the side of his neck, which if connected were like a square. His face wasn't half bad given his age. There also weren't any blemishes or dark spots on him which just add to his natural charm. As he walked along the side of the road, he currently wasn't paying much attention to his surroundings. He was also wearing a standard school uniform consisting of a pair of khaki-colored pants with a black belt holding it together tightly, a navy blue short-sleeved polo shirt printed with the school's logo, and a brown leather school bag in his right hand. The reason for the school uniform is because it was mostly influenced by Western culture rather than by Japanese standards. The school he went was built by the previous headmaster and founder who visited America and was inspired by them, creating the uniforms you see today. Of course, the same applied to the girls, gender equality at its finest, everyone. Though in his opinion he wondered what was going through the headmaster's head at the time. Anyway, he was currently a second-year middle school student. His grades were at least above average. He was in particularly good with history and English reading since his parents spoke 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Japanese. His parents had been traveling all over the world. It's only natural that they picked up another language or two, to which they then proceeded to beat into him by switching from English one week to Japanese in another at home. Though after nearly 4 years of study, listening to his parents, and trial and error, he eventually became fluent in all 3 in both reading and writing each language. He was walking down the street looking at his phone while, though he had a pair of earphones plugged in but only one was actually in his ear, the other was hanging his neck to keep it from dangling side to side. Not too far from school he was watching the latest episode of Naruto on his phone. Not bad, though in all honesty it feels as if they're just stretching the plot way too thin with all these filler arcs, as he talked to himself. The current arc he was watching the in Naruto's footsteps, the Friends Paths arc, which was focused on the Konoha 11 tackling the Chunin exams. Right now, he was watching the episode where they explained the second phase of the exam taking place in the Demon Desert. Though to be honest, he just wanted to know what happens next after Naruto collapsed from having the 9 tails extracted from him and Sakura keeping him alive. He refused to read the manga though, preferring to follow the anime and not spoil for himself what comes next. Though these filler arcs are really starting to become annoying to watch, but at least this one isn't as boring the rest have been to him, though that's just his opinion. As the episode wraps up, he puts away his phone and earbuds and begins to focus on walking back to school. A few minutes goes by in silence, a few people passing by and going about their daily lives. Not long after he arrives in front of a construction site. They were currently building a new apartment complex for low-income tenants. This project started nearly half a year ago, so only the foundation and the skeleton of the building were completed. Heavy machinery littered the area, from cement trucks and cranes, down to jackhammers and drills used by the construction crew. Right now they were in the middle of working, as loud banging noises and sounds of drills echoed throughout the neighborhood, making Haru wonder how the neighbors felt about this. As he looked over to the entrance, he saw what looked like a kid standing in front of the entrance. It seemed the boy was mesmerized at the sight before him, probably dreaming about becoming one of these big strong men when he grows up. Not that it mattered to Haru as he was about to go on Ho's way. Twang! What was that sound? As he looked around, he couldn't help but wonder what it was. Twang! Snap! There it is again as he looked around once more but found nothing. Twang! Creak! Snap! As he looked around and kept on hearing more noises, he wondered if perhaps he was going insane. Since he didn't find anything around him that could be the source, he looked at the only place he could think of. As he tilted his head upwards, he immediately found his answer. Up above there was a high-rise crane, carrying several steel I-beams high above the ground and being pulled by several cables. Though it appeared that some of those cables had already hanged loosely on the sides. Oh, so that explains the noise from earlier, as he soon came to the realization. It seemed like they were in the middle of moving them when the cables were starting to give out, most likely from the strain. As he looked down below, it just happened to be hanging over the little kid from earlier. Watch out! Yelled one of the workers. They're gonna fall! Someone else announced. Everyone, clear out! Yelled one of the other men as people scrammed to safety so as to not get caught up in the aftermath. Just as the last few cables snapped all at once, no longer being supported by anything, the I-beams soon fell off and were quickly accelerating due to gravity right towards the kid. SHHHHITTT as Haru yelled out, his body moved before even realizing. As he ran straight towards the boy, not even caring for his own safety. As the beams headed straight for the poor boy, Haru arrived just a few seconds beforehand, though there wasn't enough time to grab the boy and run. Instead, he did the only thing he could to save the boy, and that was shoving him out of the way. Using both of his hands, he managed to push the child out of harm's way, though given the time he couldn't do so gently as the kid rolled off to the side and just outside the area. As he saw was the kid looking at him in shock, he couldn't think of anything else but to smile at the young boy. Mom, Dad? I'm sorry was the last thought that went through the Haru's head before he heard a loud crashing noise and his vision turned to black. Present. Yet here he was now, without a scratch on him. Nothing of what happened made sense to him no matter how hard he tried. As soon as he regained consciousness, where am I? Am I dead? Someone out there? Were the first things that came to his mind. At first he tried looking around, to see if he was in a hospital or something. But what he found next was unlike anything he ever imagined. Instead, he soon realized that he had been floating around in an endless expanse of darkness for who knows how long. It was a literal void without anything in it. He soon concluded that he was probably dead, and that this was the afterlife. He called out to anyone in all 3 languages hoping for at least some sort of response. Instead, he was only met with silence, cold, and uncaring. As he tried to think about what felt like years to him was happening, he soon saw something out of the corner of his eye after being in this darkness for who knows how long. In this infinite void, light had pierced through this elusive and obscure dream. Light! He called out in an almost desperate voice, soon followed by joy on the boy's face despite the seemingly hopeless situation. Not a moment later he soon found himself being pulled towards that spark of light. As he reached out and got closer, he soon found out something horrifying. He wasn't being pulled towards the light, he was falling straight towards it. All this time he had actually been falling, plummeting towards the ground without notice, and as the light quickly grew bigger and brighter he immediately realized that he was free falling at breakneck speeds. As soon as the approaching light became brighter and brighter, he had no choice but to cover his eyes. Next thing he knows, he can feel the wind on his face and breathing fresh air, though the look of shock on his face immediately disappeared as the ground quickly approached him and soon started screaming once more. Which finally led to everything coming back full circle. As he finished recalling everything that happened, he first took in a deep breath and tried to think rationally, though even that was a challenge since everything happened way too suddenly. For no, I need something to drink, tried to keep my head on straight and not panic. As he opened his school bag he had with him, he pulled out a silver canteen filled with tea from earlier, which was still surprisingly warm despite the exceedingly long time he passed in that void. Soon the moon came out from behind the clouds, illuminating the area even more. As he looked at his reflection on the canteen he was shocked to his very soul. His eyes were no longer black but instead blood red in color, and inside each of them was a single inverted magatama. No. Freaking way, was all he could say, but in his mind he screamed Sharingan. It's an actual Sharingan. This has to be a dream, I'm in a dream. As he panicked and began pulling his cheek. Pa! Ouch! Haru screamed in pain as his cheek burned from pinching it. Okay, definitely not dreaming, definitely not. Nope, nope, nope. This isn't a fuck. BZZT. BZZT. BZZZZTTTTT. Ag hey. As Haru dropped the canteen and fell to his knees as he yelled at the top of his lungs. A sudden wave of immense pain shot straight through his head, as he felt like his head was about to explode and his ears started to ring. His body followed shortly after, as he felt like something was crawling under his skin and trying to reach every inch of his body. He soon curled himself into a ball and started twitching from the overwhelming amount of pain he was in. It felt as if someone was directly stabbing all of his pain receptors at once with a sharp knife, though there was nothing he could do but lay down and take it, because whatever was apparently doing this was making sure he didn't pass out from the pain. He could feel like something was trying to force its way in. Ding! Host found, commencing scan. What? Who's doing what? Come on, AGGGHHHHHHHHHH as he roared out in pain once more. Scanning. 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 A few minutes of this goes by and Haru screaming bloody murder, as the pain seemingly never ends. Scanning complete. Host is confirmed to meet all the requirements. Naruto system binding successful. Host Haru Hayashi. As soon as the voice died down, Haru finally felt the pain had started to subside, as his non-stop suffering had finally come to an end. His entire body was covered in sweat from the terrible experience. A few more minutes of this and Haru slowly regained some sense of sanity, taking in a few deep breaths before slowly getting off the ground and on to his feet. Who's there? Whoever's hiding, come out now, yelled Haru in unfettered rage towards the woods, only to be met back with silence. At least for a moment. Do not panic, Host, I am merely the administrator of the Naruto system. Surely, Host has heard of it before. Wait a moment, are you talking about that one, from the web novel? Indeed, responded the system, though Haru was left in shock at what he just heard. He had been reading quite a few novels and watched all kinds of anime, so he considers himself to be quite the otaku. Of course, that included Naruto and that web novel. Having watched the former since he was a kid while the latter he had read over a year ago, he was utterly fascinated by them, though the web novel was a little too rushed towards the end. Though that was merely his opinion. Over the next hour or so was spent trying to regain his sanity and mental focus, though in that time the system appeared to be silent, waiting for Haru to recover. Alright, I've calmed down now, system? Yes, host? Then why did this system appear in my body? It is your reward from the heavenly laws, though concrete details are unknown. Sigh, of course it is, not like they explained it in the novel either. As he thought about it, he couldn't but feel like he was expecting that to happen. Though he might not know why it appeared, but since it did, then that can only mean one thing. Looks like I somehow arrived in another world, though this is probably one where strength is going to be necessary to survive, is what he was able to glean from the information he had available. Though it might not exactly be the same as in the web novel, you must always be prepared for the unexpected. As he tried to think about his next course of action. Host, please concentrate your mind, then you will be able to see the system. As he decided to heed the system's advice, he tried to focus his mind on the system. Not a moment later it appeared in front of him, though it was quite different from what he was expecting. In front of him 7 scrolls popped into reality. When he touched one of them, the scroll unraveled, revealing the contents. So it's like a game menu. That makes it easier for me, at least compared to using a laptop, as he thought to himself before moving on. As he opened each one of them, they appeared as followed: blue, green, red, yellow, black, silver, white. Ninjutsu system. Store system. Digitsu system. Summoning beast system. Mission system. Hunter system. System locked. It looked pretty similar to the one in Naruto, except for the 2 new ones at the end, but it appeared there was no other differences so far as he recalled what each of them was. The ninjutsu system covered all ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, forbidden, and hidden jutsu from the Naruto world. There weren't any requirements other than having the strength and chakra reserves. It can be learned at any time. The store system had, from what he briefly looked at, hundreds if not thousands of different ninja props ranging from kunai, shuriken, paper bombs, smokescreens, and so on. Even all the different outfits from Naruto and the Akatsuki, down to special tools and weapons like the blades of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. The Digitsu system was for the exchange of the Mangekyo Sharingan, which included all other forms that were previously known, with the exception of Madara's, since apparently not even the system knew what it was. The Summoning Beast system covers all types of beasts in the Naruto world, which included Manda, Katsuyu, Gamabunta, otherwise known as the 3-way deadlock. All the tailed beasts were there as well, from 1-tailed Shikaku to the 9-tails Kurama. The mission system provided missions for the host to choose from. Completing these missions rewards system points and other props, and unlike in the web novel, this system was already unlocked. There's also force missions that are accepted unconditionally. Failure to complete them will result in severe penalties, but completing them gives more favorable rewards. However, like mentioned before, there were no requirements in the ninjutsu system, but every other system required system points to unlock. Up to this point he was familiar with, and considering the Kekkei Genkai wasn't available in the store means he has to upgrade the system at some point. Then there's the remaining 2, the ones he had never seen or heard before. System? What's up with the last one being locked? Host currently has not fulfilled the requirements to unlock this system. When Host has fulfilled these requirements, then this system will become available. I see, no use worrying about it for now. Then what's this hunter system about? Asked Haru. Yes, Host, hunter system will allow you to hunt beasts from this world. Defeating these beasts will allow you to earn system points. The more difficult beast you slay, the more system points you earn. You can also earn them from killing other human beings and other precious items. Host has currently 100 points for bonding with this system. That will be helpful. I'll try that out later. For now I should find a place to stay. As he decided his next course of action. Ding! Host has triggered a main mission. Explore the new world. Mission requirements. Find shelter. Requirement for mission success. Search for a place to live and train while gathering information on this new world. Failure. Minus 1,000 system points and Sharingan sealed for 1 year. Rewards. 500 system points and basic training set. Time limit 3 days. This mission is forcibly accepted, cannot be refused or given up. In addition, due to host not having enough system points, should the mission fail, the system points will be deducted and remaining system points will be in the negative. My god, it's just as ruthless as I imagined it. Barely started and already I'll have the Sharingan sealed for a year? As he read the mission details, Haru almost fell down in shock from the system's ruthlessness. Though the reward was pretty decent, so for the moment he'll just focus on the mission. As he began wandering the woods searching for people. 2 days later. Fuck, how have I not run into anyone yet? Yelled Haru, which only echoed into the distant mountain ranges. It had been 2 days since Haru arrived in this new world, and so far he has yet to meet a single person, much less any sort of civilization. He had even climbed up to one of the hills overlooking the area and saw nothing but a vast forest as far as the eye could see. Since then he's been wandering around aimlessly, and has been growing more and more worried about completing the mission. Luckily the system had food pills which could be exchanged for 2 system points each, so he bought a few along with a lighter to start fires and keep himself warm and fed at night. As he keeps walking through the forest at this rate, I'm gonna fail the mission. As he looked around, there was something out of the corner of his eye that he noticed. Is that a house? As he tried looking through, he spots what appears to be a small house built out in the middle of nowhere. Let me get a better look, as he muttered. He closed his eyes and tried to focus. Sharingan, he called out in his mind, as he opened his eyes, showing scarlet eyes with a single tomo present in each of them. As he feels that his eyesight has gotten sharper and can see better, he can clearly make out what appears to be a small cabin, and with all the trees in the area made it look like there was nothing else in the world. As Haru walked closer to it, he also caught sight of what appeared to be a dojo next to it, but decided to look inside the cabin first. Hello? Is anyone here? Yelled Haru, though no response came back. As he approached the door, he found it was unlocked, and hesitated for a moment before entering. The inside was simple. There were a few chairs and a table, along with a kitchen, bedroom, and surprisingly a working bathroom, though it looked like there wasn't any electricity and dust had been accumulating for at least half a year. Looks like no one's been here in a while, determined Haru, as there wasn't anything in the fridge either. Let's check out the dojo then, determined Haru, as he left his backpack inside and made his way towards it. Surprisingly, the floor was shiny and didn't have a speck of dust on it, and even he hesitated to step inside with his shoes on, which compared to the cabin was better maintained, almost like someone lived in here rather than in the cabin. It's written in Japanese. Guess that means I'm somewhere in Japan. Should have figured that out right away when I saw the dojo, as he berated himself for not coming to that conclusion sooner, though this throws his theory of having traveled to another world out the window, or perhaps it's a similar but different Earth, or any number of possibilities. It's too early to draw conclusions. I need more information before I can confirm anything. After taking his shoes off, he saw some bakudo, wooden sword, placed on the wall of the dojo, and it had a few signs of use as well, such as nicks and scratches on the edge of the wooden swords. Maybe someone was living here until recently, but now they're gone and who knows when they'll be back, said Haru before sighing in defeat, knowing he missed his chance to leave this forest. As he left the dojo and saw what appeared to be a small path, he followed it for a while before stumbling across a lake. There was even a pier with a small boat attached, which would explain the fishing gear in the back. There was also a pipe which connected back to the main house and was probably used to draw the water. Though I don't see anyone else here, I hope they don't mind me using this place for a while, at least until I get stronger and can get out of this forest on my own, as he apologized in advance for intruding. Ding! Congratulations to Host for completing main mission Explore the New World. Host is awarded 500 system points and basic training set. As he heard the sound of the system going off, Haru felt relieved that he found a place to stay and that his Sharingan would not be sealed for a year. That would have been a real shame. After that, the basic training set appeared with a pump. It included half a dozen kunai knives, a dozen shuriken, a few paper bombs, and a small ninja pouch which functioned like an inventory space. Though it could not hold everything and nothing bigger than a sword, it could hold quite a lot. Since this is to be my new place, I'll stay here for a while. This place offers the perfect place to train for me, though I shouldn't mess it up much, or maybe go in deeper to practice any big ninjutsu, as he thought of various ways to spend his time here. Maybe one day I'll find a way back home too, as he said that a trace of sadness couldn't help but flash in his eyes. He had been wondering if his family had already received news of his death in his old world, and if they were already planning his funeral. He didn't want to see his mom crying, so instead he would work hard and find a way back to his old world. Till then. Time to start training, he said resolutely before walking back to the cabin. Maybe I should go by a different name, don't want others to know my real name, besides this is probably a different world where no one knows me. Now, what should I call myself? As he receded into deep thought for a few minutes before opening his eyes. Why not Haru Uchiha? The last of the Uchiha clan, I kind of like the sound of that as he smiled in joy. This would be the beginning of Haru Uchiha's journey through this strange new world. First things first, time to gather chakra as he sat on the porch cross-legged and opened the ninjutsu system. Chakra is formed from two types of energy and is the source of all a ninja's power. 1. Physical energy which exists in all the cells in the entire body all working together. 2. Spiritual energy, the primal source of power which is intensified through training and experience. Both of these energies have to be drawn out and brought together in order to perform jutsu, then finally with hand signs help focus and unleash the jutsu. Sakura really did a great job explaining the basics, made it easier on everyone in my opinion, praised Haru. Though a ninja will have a maximum amount of chakra that they can form and use before it runs out, and need to rest for a while to replenish it. Though with practice this maximum amount can be increased, but only to a certain point as they're limited by their genetics. Though with the Naruto system that isn't an issue, and combined with the Kekkai Genkai of the Uchiha clan, it'll be interesting to see as he soon found the chakra cultivating methods and started cultivating. After 30 minutes he could already feel the energy from all around his body start to gather, and could feel chakra starting to form in the center of his body. After 4 hours he could even feel his chakra network, though obviously he wasn't able to see the chakra points with his Sharingan, as the Hyuga clan were the only ones able to see them, but it was still good to know. As he sensed it he stopped cultivating for a moment, and couldn't help but be puzzled. System, why do I already have a chakra network? As he wondered how that could be possible. He wasn't born in the world of Naruto, so that should be impossible. Fortunately the system gave a reasonable answer. In order for host to be able to cultivate chakra, when the Naruto system bonded to you it created the chakra network automatically, replied the system. That makes sense, otherwise what would have been the point? I wouldn't be able to use ninjutsu or genjutsu, or taijutsu if that were the case. That also explains the terrible pains that coursed through my body not too long ago. After that he went straight back to cultivating for another 2 hours before hearing a rumbling sound from his stomach. As he patted his stomach, he recalled that chakra consumes large amounts of energy, so it equally demanded large amounts of food. Luckily this forest was abundant with berries and wildlife, so he gathered plenty of them but also went to hunt a few rabbits, which gave him the perfect chance to practice his kunai throwing. With the help of the Sharingan he was able to anticipate where the rabbit would go and threw it. Of course he failed quite a bit as he had to get used to both throwing and the Sharingan's enhanced perception threw off his timing. So it wasn't until nightfall that he was finally able to catch one, though he'll rapidly improve with time. Ding! Congratulations to host for killing your first beast, wild rabbit. You earned 10 system points. After opening the system he saw his system points had increased to 560, he had spent about 38 points on food, pills and a lighter, so this wasn't bad. Just like in a game, hunt and earn points, it's as simple as that. He took the rabbit to the lake. He started to slowly peel off its skin, though this would have been quite difficult, but due to having chakra it was of little issue to him. As he took them back to the cabin he lit the stove and soon began cooking it. Luckily it was an old-school iron stove. He simply tossed in a few branches, lit a leaf, and soon it caught fire and soon started cooking. It seemed whoever owned this place had at least left behind their kitchenware, so it was easy for Haru to cook the meat. After finishing the rabbit he ate the berries next, and along with a food pill Haru felt quite full. That was delicious. So long as I eat enough along with the food pills I should be alright. Next thing is to check what's my chakra attribute. As he looked inside the store's system, the chakra testing paper was worth 10 system points like he read before. He also looked up the sword of Kusanagi, or otherwise known as the grass-mowing sword wielded by Sasuke Uchiha, and found out it was worth 7,000 system points. It was expensive, but in due time he would be able to get it. It's better to have a decent weapon first before upgrading to the Mangekyo Sharingan. Haru quickly pulled those thoughts out of his head for now, since that wouldn't be until far off into the future. He then exchanged for one sheet of the chakra testing paper. As he held it in his hands it looked like an ordinary piece of paper. But Haru knows there's more to it than meets the eye. Chakra natures are divided into fire, wind, lightning, earth, and water, forming into a circular diagram. If you go clockwise right, you can see what each element is strong against. For example, fire beats wind, wind beats lightning, lightning beats earth, earth beats water, and water beats fire. If you go counterclockwise left, you can see which element is weak to. Pretty simple. With the chakra testing paper, if your element is fire, the paper will burn. With wind, it tears in two. The paper wrinkles if it's lightning. If it's earth, it disintegrates. And finally, the paper becomes wet if it's water. If you have more than one element, then a part of the paper will follow along that corresponding element. Haru closed his eyes and tried to focus his chakra into the paper. First the paper burned, then wrinkled, and finally split into two. This is great, fire, wind, and lightning. My body was designed for battle, yelled Haru in joy, as he's able to use 3 chakra natures. Chidori, Raisin Shuriken, Majestic Destroyer Flame, these were all jutsus that Haru hoped to be able to use in this new world. So after finding out he would be able to use his favorite jutsu in this new world, he was able to continue training in joy. Next day. As the sun rose up through the cracks in the cabin's window, Haru got out of the futon he had exchanged from the system. It was a little pricey at 300 system points, but he wasn't going to sleep on the cold floor, not even if his life was at stake. He had increased his chakra to 3 times what it was yesterday, but would probably take him at least half a year to reach genin level. Most likely thanks to his Uchiha blood that he's able to progress this quickly. After washing his face and hunting for wildlife, he began his usual training, and later at night he began his next step of training, hand seals. Haru knows that he could learn ninjutsu, but without mastering how to form hand seals quickly in the middle of battle will eventually get him killed. So he would practice ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu during the day and hand seals at night. That was Haru's plan, at least for the time being. The hand seals were as follows: dragon, ox, boar, hare, monkey, serpent, ram, horse, dog, tiger, bird, and rat. It had already been for 4 hours but was still having trouble. He didn't want to use the Sharingan and become too reliable on it to solve his every problem. So even though this took more time, he would be able to do it anytime, anywhere. This would become an invaluable skill in the long run, and would most likely save his life one day. Later on he checked the Digitsu system and checked the requirement for 2 Tomo Sharingan, and it required 1000 system points to upgrade it. Though if I'm right, then 3 Tomo will require 3000 and the Mangekyo Sharingan will require 10,000 system points. Though this was merely Haru's guess, considering the info from the web novel was accurate so far, but he didn't put too much hope in them being exactly the same. As he looked out and gazed at the full moon, Haru felt happy. Happy because he would be able to become a ninja like he always wanted. Since he was an otaku, he had read several novels and animes of all different types, but Naruto was his all-time favorite. As a fan, how could he not be excited at the chance to form his own Rasengan or Chidori, appear and disappear like the wind, walk on water, and possibly fly through the sky? Eventually he'll find his way back to his family, no matter how long it takes. He knew Rin Tianyu, the main character in the web novel, had accomplished it, though granted he might not use the exact method he used, but as they say, where there's a will, there's a way. 3 months later. Pun! In front of the cabin, a second figure appeared that looked just like Haru from a puff of white smoke. Though it looked a bit illusory, like it could suddenly disappear at any time. 3 months had passed in his chakra training and was currently at the level of an academy student. He had also made great progress in forming hand seals. He could now form 2 hand seals in a second, being capable of performing the simple E and D rank ninjutsu such as the clone jutsu, transformation jutsu, teleportation jutsu, and substitution ninjutsu. Now that his strength has increased to the next level, he'll try to practice some of the C-rank ninjutsu for the first time. He decided on practicing Flame Bullet first because of 2 reasons. First is because it was the weakest of the fire-style ninjutsu to use and learn. Second reason is because he's more proficient with fire-style thanks to his Uchiha blood compared to lighting and wind, so he put those 2 on hold for now until he can master fire-style. Serpent, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Fire-style, Flame Bullet Jutsu. As he finished, he tried to spit out a small ball of fire, but instead all he got was a puff of smoke. As he coughed it out violently, he quickly reached out for his bottle and drank several large gulps of water. After putting back the bottle down, he wiped his mouth. Looks like this will take a while, not that it matters since I've got all day. Let's go again. As he finished, he began performing the same hand seals. He spent most of the day practicing the Flame Bullet Jutsu. By the time the sun set, he already mastered it. The following morning he practiced the Fireball Jutsu. That took him 2 weeks to master even with the Sharingan, but he also realized that he should focus more on his taijutsu to increase his physical strength, which would probably help him train for much longer. Soon another 2 months passed, and he was able to use the several C-rank ninjutsu. Though he soon became low on system points, with just 110 left. Most of them had been spent on food pills for his hunting of rabbits and fish from the river. The reason is because he needed them for sustenance in the middle of nowhere. Now that he had sufficient strength, he wanted to try out the hunter system and earn more points. System, how do I use this hunter system? Haru asked, as nearly half a year ago he felt that he wasn't ready to test his luck yet, but now he was at the level of genin, he believed that he was confident enough to try it. Host merely needs to either request or simply think to begin, then host will be taken to a space filled with beasts to train. There are lower and higher level areas and it is the host's choice on what difficulty the area he wishes to train in. However, as Haru heard the system's voice, he knitted his brows and continued to listen. The area environment and what types of beasts the host will encounter is decided completely at random, but will also provide host with plenty of opportunities to earn system points. I see, that means that it may be a desert, an ocean, jungle, or something completely unexpected depending on my luck. As Haru listened to the system's explanation, he his hand under his chin and nodded his head in response. Affirmative, host. Well, at least I'll be able to assimilate and fight in different environments. This could really help speed up my training or probably just get me killed. The lower rank areas could be similar to grinding levels for experience, or system points in his case, but he'll probably have to kill a lot to get a lot to be able to get anywhere, so he'd better play it safe for now. He didn't even want to imagine entering those higher level areas. Also, host, in these areas the beasts are one rank higher than the area they occupy, so a D-rank area contains C-rank level beasts. Should host defeat them, you will earn more system points due to the increased difficulty, allowing you to improve much more quickly. Also, host will be able to leave the area at any time, but only by using half the host's current system points. Half? Did it just say half? Damn it, this system is ruthless, as he complained over such an outrageous price to be paid. Is the system trying to bleed Haru dry? Imagine having over 1 billion system points and we're in a high-level area. You wanted to retreat but have to give up over 500 million system points. 500 million? Not even Rintian would be able to accept that, and probably anyone else for that matter, though for Haru that will be only as a last resort. He couldn't defeat a beast that was too strong for him, he may have to just swallow his pride and do it. But just imagine all the effort put into earning that amount only for it to vanish in an instant. Anyone's heart would probably be crushed. This is more like the mission system penalties for failure. I guess this means I can't afford to be careless, but at the same time I'm glad. After Haru heard the system's explanation, Haru felt at least a little bit relieved. In exchange, he would be able to earn more system points from the lower rank areas and even more in the higher rank areas, allowing him to quickly increase his strength in a short amount of time, as well as getting the all-important system points. Alright then, system, start with the lowest ranked area, as he announced his request. Yes, host, please wait a minute while the transfer is in progress. As he heard the system finish, under his feet he sees what appears to be a space-time jutsu formula begin to be carved out on the ground. Though Haru can't understand it now, he might be able to if he had a Bito Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan, though that would have to wait until later. As the system said, after a minute the formula was completed and started to glow. A few seconds later he vanished from that spot. Unknown to Haru, a man was watching him about a mile away from the cabin. He appeared to be in his late 20s. He was wearing a traditional Shinsengumi uniform, complete a haori and hakama over a kimono. I came here because someone decided to barge into my home. I never expected it to be a human though, and such an interesting one at that, he said with an air of aloofness. Though contrary to his words, his voice, it didn't sound like he cared though that Haru was using his place with such a carefree attitude. It doesn't seem like he has any idea where he's at, but it does seem like he intends to get stronger, at least enough to defend himself. Well, not that it worries me in the slightest. Judging from everything I've seen about him, it doesn't appear that has a connection to any faction. So what's the harm? I'll let him stay here for the time being, and maybe mention him to Surzex if I feel like it. As he watched Haru disappear with that unknown formula, however, should the day come that you wind up becoming our enemy, I will personally cut you down, as the responsibility is mine alone, as he said with a sharp and serious tone before walking away. If Haru had seen that man, he would have recognized him immediately, as well as the world he's ended up in. Tsuji Okita. Surzex Lucifer's Knight. 3 years later. In a B-rank forest area. Roar! Roar! Deep in the forest were the roars of a huge, wild ape. It was over 3 times the size of a normal ape. It had red fur all over and bulging muscles that could easily squeeze a human skull. It had large brown eyes and its chest was huge, like it could be beaten like a drum. Though the pressure it gave off was incredibly weak, mostly due to the number of cuts and bruises all over its body. That last roar was all it could muster before falling down, creating a small crater in the process. In front of this ape was a young man. He appeared to be 17 and about 5 feet 7 inches. He was wearing a black short-sleeved shirt with a short collar and a pair of blue shorts, though the shorts were torn up at the ends and the right side of his shirt is missing. He had short, black hair with the left side slightly covering his left eye and weighed around 141 pounds. On his right arm is a single arm guard with his right leg holding a pouch for kunai and shuriken. On the right side of the youth was a larger-than-average shakudo with a black scabbard and matching hilt. Though the most easy to notice feature were his eyes were as scarlet, or more closely the color of blood. Inside each eye, there were 3 tomo. The young man was obviously Haru Uchiha. After 3 years of training he had finally reached Jonin class. When he had mastered the Shadow Clone Jutsu, he had been able to learn over 100 ninjutsu, taijutsu, and dozens of genjutsu. Though which one specifically will have to wait for another time. He had grown taller, and he had developed a lot more muscle compared to 3 years ago. If you were to compare the two, there would be a huge difference, most likely because his body was slowly altered by his training for the past couple of years. Congratulations to Host for completing main mission King of the Jungle. Host is awarded 5,000 system points. Finally, it's over. As Haru heard the system's announcement, he sat down on the ground in relief. Up till now he had been fighting in that monkey for half a day, and the sun was now beginning to set past the mountains surrounding this jungle. Haru has been in this jungle for the last 6 months, fighting against the various beasts that appeared, ranging from 15-meter-long snakes, 10-meter-tall tigers, and various man-eating plants. He could have set the entire forest on fire, but that would have only given him system points, and not any actual combat experience. He also had experience fighting humanoid monsters in a previous C-rank and B-rank area. His style of training was to stay in one area, eliminate all the beasts, get the bonus missions the system provided, return, repeat. Though the amount of system points varied between each zone. D and C rank areas gave between 100 to 1,000 system points. B- and A ranks gave most likely 10,000 system points. S and SS rank areas most likely between 100,000 points. Though given that he had only gone up to B rank areas so far, he couldn't be sure. After all, training here when he could leave at any time would only get him so far. I think it's about time I go and see what this new world has in store for me, as he asked the system to leave. After a minute he disappeared from his spot. Haru's cabin. Noon. It's been a while, can't say I haven't grown attached to this place. As he opened his eyes from the teleportation, he saw the familiar cabin he had been spending the last 3 years in. Though he would be gone for months at a time to train in the hunter areas, he had always come back to clean up and relax for up to a week before going on his next training session. He thought of leaving several times before during his training, but decided to postpone it until he at least reached Jonin rank, to make sure he was strong enough to survive on his own. He also didn't have any proper documents or something of the sort. After all, this was a different world than his old one, so there could be some issues regarding his identity. So if he had problems with the authorities, he had to make sure he could flee from them without an issue. As he walked towards the cabin, he noticed something odd. The dust in the cabin should have returned since he was gone for half a year. Instead, it was spotless. Someone had clearly taken the time to give the place a thorough cleaning. Also that it was done recently, just a few days ago. Haru immediately broke into a run, as he ran inside and opened the door. "Hello, anyone here?" he called several times but received no response. As he walked inside and took a peek, he saw on the table what appeared to be a letter and a map. Making sure there was nothing out of ordinary, he reached out for the letter with caution. Nothing happened, and nothing he could see with his Sharingan indicated there were any traps set. As he opened it, he could tell it was written in Japanese, though since he had already learned it thanks to his Sharingan and the prop books Make Out Tactics, Winky Face, provided by the system, it was no issue. As he began to read. "Hello, Haru." "Yes." "I know who you are, though where you came from is another matter. I've been watching you for quite a while." Haru's eyes popped open in shock. Someone had been spying on him, and he didn't even realize. "I know you must be very surprised, but I have no intention of harming you. You could say I was more curious than cautious." "Sounds like you're underestimating me," is more like it, thought Haru in response before continuing. "If possible, I would like to meet you in person one day, though I doubt you'll be staying there any longer after reading this letter." He's got that right, agreed Haru as he thought about packing everything and leaving tonight. I could tell immediately that you didn't know where you are, so I left a map for you that will lead you out of this forest and to the nearest town. Whether you follow it or burn it is completely up to you. As Haru glanced at the map, he couldn't help but feel grateful to the stranger, though he sounds like a complete weirdo if all he's been doing is watching him the whole time. However, if you do decide to pay me a visit, I've marked the location on your map. Though you have been staying at my cabin for quite a while, so I hope the least you can do is consider my offer with all sincerity. Ugh, okay, you got me there, as Haru groaned in pain as he was hit in a sore spot. He had been practically freeloading at this cabin for years. Though he was gone for months at a time, he still felt bad about it. Regardless, I sincerely hope to meet you one day in person. OS. As he put down the letter, he could feel that this stranger didn't sound like he was pissed about him using his cabin, though it made him wonder why he would allow a total stranger to stay there for so long. Either this guy is just a really nice guy with an easygoing personality, or a complete weirdo, was the conclusion Haru came to. Luckily, I spent most of my time perfecting myself in those areas, so I doubt he knows too much about my abilities, especially my progress in the last 6 months, Haru thought in relief. As Haru weighed out his options, he still thought it would be best to go and meet this person to at least thank him. Worst case scenario, I'll just run, besides I've already died once, so what's there to fear? As Haru walked over to the map and unfolded it. As he saw it, he immediately recognized it as a general map of Japan, so it would seem that this is another world with pretty similar geography to his old one, or is just an alternate version of Earth, though he does not have enough information at the moment to confirm which it is. At least knowing that it's Earth gave him some relief, since it felt like he actually left, as it brought a small smile to his face. Now then, he said, he marked it. Where is it? What? As he was looking over the map, he eventually spotted the area circled by the mysterious individual. It was of course in a city, though that wasn't the issue. It was the name of it that caused him to scream in shock, because Haru recognized it before. Morning. Train. In coach. Beep. Beep. Attention passengers, we will be arriving at Ko Station shortly. Please prepare all your belongings before leaving the train. I repeat. As the announcement kept repeating, a young man wearing a simple black shirt and blue pants was out gazing the passenger window, lost in thought. What am I gonna do? Was the question that plagued the youth's mind. The young man was obviously Haru, still worried about what he'll do when he gets there. He came from another world with the Naruto system. He spent 3 years perfecting his skills and ninjutsu so that he could survive in this world. Only recently, though, he found out the world he's been sent to is Highschool DxD. He's read the series before and could honestly say it wouldn't be such a bad place to live in, compared to the other thousands of other possible worlds he could have been sent to. Though he was worried that his arrival will cause events to change and perhaps make matters worse. There was also the option of spending the rest of his days in quiet isolation away from the fights with gods, devils, fallen angels, and other crazy things. However, that would put the 3 years he spent training alone for nothing. Another possibility was that he'll somehow get involved no matter where he goes from just a single, wrong move, and if that's the case, then he would rather take his chances at least somewhere he knows what's going to happen. After he left the forest and mountains surrounding the cabin, he arrived at the nearest town, stole some money and clothes, headed for the nearest station, and soon found himself on his way to Ko Town, or just Ko as Haru will call it from now on. Sounds so awkward otherwise. And apparently I'll be arriving a week before April on top of that, as he began thinking of being just on time for canon to begin, then another possibility that it could have never even happened, etc. Sigh. In the end, my curiosity got the better of me as he couldn't resist the chance to see it for himself. Fun fact, though, is that he was able to catch up on his hobbies, and found out that all the anime, manga, and other things were nearly identical except for 2 things. First, there was no trace of Highschool DxD anywhere. Thought that was expected since I'm actually here. Second, was that there wasn't anything Naruto related anywhere. Even when he looked it up on the internet, he received 0 hits. He tried asking the system, but it didn't respond. So Haru had no choice but to give up on that for the time being. Beep. Beep. We have arrived at Ko Station. We have arrived at Ko Station. Thank you for riding transit. We hope to see you on board again soon. Next stop is. Guess it's time for me to get going. I'll figure things out as I go. Besides, as he looked out the window, he saw his reflection, showing off his Sharingan. I have more than enough confidence to at least get away if things get rough. A smile reflected on his face before deactivating them and getting off the train. Noon. Streets of Ko. The sun was beating down on Haru. Even though it's spring, for some reason it already feels like summer. Haru luckily wasn't one of them. It felt pleasant, like someone had turned on the heater in winter. Though he absolutely hates the cold with a passion, he would rather live out in the desert than be anywhere near snow. As he walked the streets, he had asked some locals where Ko Academy was located. He at least wanted to familiarize himself with the area, considering the anime only showed small parts of them actually walking to school, or simply arriving at their next destination in between scenes. So for the past few hours he had been wandering the streets trying to find out where it is, but everything they told him was useless. He could have used his abilities, but that would bring the risk of gathering unwanted attention, and besides it was better to do that at night. Then again, this is a town run by devils, so night might be an even worse option. Thinking about how things can turn out, he spent the next few hours. I need a break. After hours of wandering, Haru was annoyed and decided a little bit of rest was in order. As he walked along, he couldn't help but notice a park was entering his view. Isn't that the park where Issei was killed? Says out loud. Luckily no one was around to hear him. As he entered, he could recognize the fountain and the landscape from the anime. From this he was glad to have made some progress. At the very least I'm on the right track. Ko Academy probably shouldn't be too far from here. Haru walked until he saw a huge tree with a pretty big area covered in shade by the tree's branches. He took a seat and couldn't help but feel at ease here. Whether because of the silence or the sound of running water from the fountain, it helped to relax his body. Suddenly his eyes felt heavy, though he could tell it was completely natural. Given that he hadn't gotten much sleep last night, he thought maybe I'll rest for a little bit before closing his eyes with his head laid back against the tree. He didn't have to worry about anyone attacking him because to everyone he looked and felt like a normal human. A few minutes later, all that could be heard was the sound of Haru soundly asleep. A few hours later, the sounds of footsteps resounded, followed by the sound of voices. As they walked closer, you could begin to see two figures talking. "Is that really true?" said one of the figures. "I'm not 100% sure, but I think we have to look into this further before we can say for certain," answered the other. "Then the only thing we can do is keep an eye on him for the time being." Both figures appeared to be female, about 18 years old, the one thing that everybody who saw them walk by agreed on. Both of them were extremely beautiful, unlike any other they had ever seen. One of them was a young woman with a voluptuous figure. She had long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair was tied up in a long ponytail reaching all the way down to her legs, with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward but held together in place by an orange ribbon. Though you could tell that she has a body that would put even the best of runway models to shame. Especially her breasts, they were massive. You would be hard-pressed not to stare at them when you meet her for the first time. Next to her was a beautiful young woman with skin as white as snow and beautiful blue eyes. She also had a buxom figure rivaling her black-haired friend. In fact, her breast size was nearly identical that you couldn't tell apart with the naked eye. Though her most distinguishing feature was without a doubt her hair. Her long, flowing crimson-red hair reaching all the way down to her thighs with a single strand sticking out from the top. Some of her hair also had some loose bangs covering her forehead, and side bangs framing her face. Both girls were wearing the same Ko Academy girls' school uniform, consisting of a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with a black ribbon on their shirt collar worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset. They also both wore a magenta skirt with white accents and brown dress shoes. The only difference between the two were their socks they were wearing, with the black-haired girl wearing black calf-length socks and the red-haired girl wearing white crew-length socks. If Haru was awake, he would recognize these two in a heartbeat. Rias Gremory and Akino Himejima. The crimson-haired ruined princess and the priestess of thunder. Regardless, I think we had better. As Rias was speaking, she suddenly stopped in her tracks, frozen in place. "Rias?" Akino asked, worried as she had never seen her best friend acting this way before. "That boy, who is he?" As she spoke, she pointed to a young boy sleeping in the shade. As Akino looked at the boy, she tried to remember seeing a boy like that around here. "I don't know, maybe he just arrived in town. Considering the clothes he's wearing," she replied as both of them walked closer to him. As they got closer, they could tell the young man was at least physically fit, not too much muscle but not too little either. He seemed pretty ordinary. "He looks like an ordinary person to me," Akino concurred, but wondered what her king was thinking of. "I don't know, there's just something about him. I can't quite describe it, as Rias was lost in thought. Something in her gut told her there's more to this person than meets the eye. It's true though, as her intuition was never wrong before. Ugh, as they looked at his sleeping face, it soon distorted and beads of sweat started pouring out his forehead. Is he having a bad dream? Aquino asked as he looked at the pained expression on his face. She didn't know why, but in her heart worry started to take root for the young man. More like a nightmare. As Rias looked on, she couldn't help but feel pity seeing the state of the young man. He kind of reminds me of how Kaneko used to be, as she thought back to how she was before. Both Rias and Aquino had taken a spot on the ground, with Rias on the left and Aquino on the right. They soon saw that his face was getting paler. They looked at each other for a moment before silently nodding in agreement. Hey, wake up, as Rias started to shake his shoulders. After a few more seconds, his eyes opened abruptly. What they saw made them speechless. The boy's eyes were unlike any the two of them had ever seen before. They were scarlet red, and in each eye there were 3 tomo. As the young man was staring at them, both his eyes were also wide open in shock. Though he didn't say a word, you could tell cold sweat was already running down his face, though compared to earlier in his sleep some color had returned to his face. Oh shit! As Haru looked at the last people he expected to meet so soon had appeared while he was sleeping. Shit, I'm still not thinking straight after that, as he tried to push that nightmare he was having earlier out of his head, though that proved difficult to do right away. Though as he looked at both Rias and Aquino, he had to admit they were both as breathtaking as the series portrayed them. No, even more so than wait. This isn't the time for that, as he tried shaking his head to clear up his muddled thoughts. First, I need to calm down, worry about everything else later. As he closed his eyes and took in deep breath, his Sharingan turned off and they returned to their normal black color. Your eyes! Rias was the first to speak up as she saw that his eyes had changed. What are you talking about? And sorry, but who are you two? As he looked at them with a confused expression before following up with a blush, as he couldn't help it when he looked at the two of them. You mean you don't know? As Aquino spoke, she tried to see if he was lying, though thanks to Haru's training he was able to fool her. I'm sorry, we were walking by and we saw you were suffering in your sleep. As Rias recovered from her surprise and smiled as she explained everything prior to him waking up. I see, in that case sorry for suspecting you. As he got up immediately and apologized, though as he bowed he also slightly looked up and saw how big their breasts were. My god, they weren't messing around, those things are huge. Both of them did the same. Yufufu, don't worry, I'm sure we can keep that little display a secret between the 3 of us, as she laughed in her usual manner, though she could probably tell that he already looked. I really appreciate it, miss? Aquino Himejima, as she showed her trademark smile. I should also introduce myself. My name is Rias Gremory. It's very nice to meet you, as she also gave her greetings and smiled, which could put any man who saw it straight to heaven. It's nice to meet you too. My name is Haru Uchiha, as he introduced himself before talking for a short while, mostly about small things and nothing Haru didn't mind saying. Haru, then if you don't mind me asking, what were you doing there sleeping in the middle of the park? As they continued talking, Rias asked a seemingly innocent question, but Haru could tell that he had already piqued her curiosity, so she wanted to know more under their current friendly circumstances. Not that Haru minded, as it wasn't exactly a big secret he was keeping, so he decided to humor her. I actually came here looking for someone, but as I didn't get much sleep last night I dozed off when I was supposed to be just taking a break, he replied honestly. Yufufu, and who might that be? Perhaps a special someone? Aquino, on the other hand, was acting like a tease and mischievous like with Issei, though that might have been Haru's imagination. No, there isn't anyone like that, at least not anymore. As he said that, for a moment he thought about his parents, as his eyes lowered for a moment. Neither one of them said anything. They could tell that they had stepped on a very sensitive subject. After a few more seconds of silence he looked up and smiled. Sorry, but I have to get going now. I'll be staying in town for a few days. If I see you around I hope to talk with you guys some more. Have a good day, as he bowed before walking away. Shortly after Haru left. As both Rias and Aquino stared at Haru's back as he left, they could tell he was lying, though his face appeared to be telling the truth. They both could see it in his eyes. He knew they saw it, but tried to play it off like nothing happened. Both of them could tell because they had seen those eyes before. The eyes of someone who's been through pain and suffering unlike most. And that back of his is one who's been burdened with loneliness, most likely for quite a while. As Aquino looked at her best friend and king, she was the one to break the ice. Rias, that boy, she could already tell what her king was thinking. Akino, keep an eye on him, also try to find anything else on him. I want to know everything. As Rias's curiosity had been lit, she could tell that he was somewhat different from others. In all her years she has never seen someone like him. Right, that boy, he must possess something special, but I don't sense a sacred gear in him, or anything like it for that matter. As she thought back to those blood-red eyes, it honestly sent shivers down her spine. But it was the good kind. She had never felt that way before, and she honestly didn't hate it. It seems my intuition was right, but we have to be careful about how we go about this. As they stared out in the distance where Haru had gone off to. Next morning. Hotel room in Ko. Sai, yesterday was a total disaster. Hopefully today goes better. As Haru was getting dressed for today, Haru was still thinking about his unexpected meeting with Rias and Akino. He didn't plan to meet them at least until a week or two later, once he had gotten a better understanding of the situation. Though I guess I had to meet them at some point. What's done is done. For now I should focus on finding the others. As he finished getting dressed and walked downstairs to the hotel's entrance. After meeting the two of them, Haru had continued his search for Ko Academy. That didn't take long as he found it shortly after, though school had already let out, so he had no choice but to move on to his next target, the church. That was actually easier to find than he thought, considering it was at the outskirts of the city, with the tinted windows and cross at the top being a dead giveaway. He had thought of locating Issei's house next yesterday, but after what happened he decided to postpone it till today. He had stayed the night in one of the cheaper hotels in the inner city. It didn't have much, but Haru didn't mind as he was just gonna stay there till he figured something out. He also made no progress towards finding the man in the letter, mainly because he didn't have any leads on him or clues to at least give a hint of his whereabouts. He had originally come here to just say his thanks, but he soon found himself meddling in other people's affairs, though it wouldn't have been the first time. Soon he began walking the streets of Ko again, heading towards the school's surrounding areas looking for Issei's house. He thought of looking for Kiba's place, but given the novels didn't tell him much about it, he decided to leave it for later. After nearly 30 minutes of walking, he could feel someone was watching him. He didn't stop or slow down his pace as he didn't want to alert them. Maybe it's one of Rias's or Akino's familiars keeping an eye on me, as he guessed, considering there was no one else in the city who knew him. It's after all still a weekday, so they can't miss out on school just to follow him. As he rounded a corner, he formed a series of hand signs. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Pun. As he finished, a puff of smoke appeared in front of him. As it cleared, it revealed another person looking exactly like himself. After mastering the Shadow Clone Jutsu, Haru could create a maximum of 10 clones with his current chakra level. However, due to the fact that he has to divide his chakra equally among them, he never created more than 3 or 4 at a time. Another reason is because unlike that cheat Naruto, he doesn't have the crazy reservoirs of chakra the Uzumaki clan had at his disposal. At least for now he didn't, but in due time he knows with the system's help he'll be able to go beyond his current limits and accomplish even greater feats as a ninja. But for that to happen, he must continue to work hard and never stop improving. He then performed another series of hand seals and used the transformation jutsu to transform himself into your average 40-year-old salaryman. Think you can lead them away from here for a while? He asked the clone of himself. Yeah, don't want them interrupting our plans a second time. Leave it to me, says the clone of Haru with a smile. After that, the clone walked out from behind the corner and walked in the complete opposite direction. As the real Haru watched him walk off, he felt the presence from earlier was following the clone, successfully throwing it off his trail, at least for a while. My clone will disperse after half a day. Considering the amount of chakra I gave it, there shouldn't be any problems. As he finished watching, he continued on his search for his target. A week later. Will you go out with me? Said a very cute but shy girl with a huge blush on her face. The young girl had long silky black hair down to her hips. She had on a school uniform consisting of a dark red jacket with the letter P embroidered in gold, a white undershirt, red bow, and a green skirt with a thin white strap around the lower end of it. Go out with you? Am I? Said a confused young man. He was wearing a Ko Academy school uniform consisting of a dark black blazer over a white, long-sleeved dress shirt with black highlights and a black ribbon on the collar. He also wore matching pants and brown dress shoes. He looked to be about average in height with short brown hair and eyes. Yuma Amano, aka the fallen angel Rainer. Issei Hayadu, one of the perverted trio and holder of the boosted gear. What they didn't know was that behind Issei in one of the trees was Haru watching over them. If I didn't know already ahead of time what was going to happen, I probably would have thought that this was the greatest thing in my life, to Issei as he looked on in both jealousy and pity for the poor boy. Haru had finally found the Haida household a few days ago, and has since then been keeping an eye on him. Though he didn't follow too closely and made sure to use some genjutsu, and transformed himself as a precaution, considering he could never know who's watching him. Though he didn't watch him 24/7 and only when he walked to and from Ko Academy, because he knew that this day would come, but the question was when? The rest of the time he spent either training inside his hunting grounds or out on the town asking people if they recognized the writing from the letter. He had gone to various parts of the city but still came up empty-handed. He also had been avoiding Rias and Aquino since that day. There were even a couple of times he nearly ran into them by chance, but was able to just barely hide from them. They had even sent out their familiars in full force to look for him. If it wasn't because of his skills as a ninja along with his Sharingan, he probably would have been found by them long ago. It's not that he didn't want to meet them or anything absurd like that, it's simply because it isn't the right time yet. Lastly, he wanted to see if things would still play out the way they did, and seeing Rainier asking Issei out proved that things were going exactly as planned. As he looked at Issei's shocked face, Rainier continued talking before reaching her point. "See, the thing is, I'd like for you to be my boyfriend," as she finished off her act, perfectly capturing Issei's heart. As Haru saw Issei leave with a smile plastered all over his face, he saw someone walking right where Issei was a moment ago. She was a petite girl with white hair and hazel eyes. The front of her hair had two long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back had a short bob cut. She also wore a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides, wearing the Ko Academy girls' school uniform without the shoulder cape. Kaneko Tuja, Rias's first rook and younger sister of Kuroka. She was watching Issei while eating a popsicle with a blank expression. Haru was watching her while thinking, so it really is like in the anime, though she sure is short. Suddenly Kaneko turned her head in the direction of where Haru was hiding. "You can come out now." "No use hiding," she said in her Montoni-like voice, though Haru thought, "Guess I still underestimated her Nikomata powers and her ability to detect when someone even thinks about her. Never mind, not even gonna finish that." Haru, seeing all he wanted for today, formed a series of hand seals before vanishing in a whirlwind of leaves, all while making sure to erase all traces of his presence. Kaneko merely squinted her eyes as she licked her popsicle. "Quick on his feet," she said before walking away. Occult Research Club. In the room was Rias, Aquino, and Kaneko, who was finishing telling her story of what happened earlier today. "I see," as Rias looked at the chessboard, she said after hearing Kaneko's report. "You were right, 100%, as Kaneko followed up. "Yeah, you totally called it," Aquino offers her praise. "I'm just glad I asked you to keep a close eye on him," as Rias offered her gratitude while Kaneko followed up with a yep in response. "And what about the other one? The boy named Haru, any progress on him, Aquino?" as she moved one of her pawn pieces forward. Aquino's face went from a smile to one of sadness. "Unfortunately, Rias, we haven't been able to find a single thing on him, no past history, records, anything. It's like he just suddenly appeared one day out of thin air." Rias then recrossed her legs as she mumbled, "I see. So we don't even know if he's really who he claims to be." As she thought back to their first meeting with him, he didn't seem to be lying to them from what she recalled, not entirely at least. Though ever since then she has been more and curious about this black-haired boy with scarlet eyes. She was absolutely sure that this young man was special. Though he didn't have a sacred gear, her intuition told her that there was much more than what there appears to be. For over the past week they had monitored all his movements, but all he did was ask around town if they knew the person in the letter he showed them. Though she didn't know who he was looking for, it seemed like it was slowly frustrating him to no end. "Maybe if I saw it then perhaps I could," as she was lost in thought. He was there. As Rias looked up at Kaneko, her eyes widened. "What?" as she looked at her servant in surprise. He was hiding pretty well, but he was there, watching Issei too. As she added it, both Rias and Aquino were lost in thought. This instead led to more questions than answers as to who was this mysterious young man that appeared in her territory. After a while Aquino asked, "What's next? What do we do with them now?" as she looked to Rias for an answer. As Rias was in deep thought for a moment before her smile showed for Issei, "We need to make our preparations immediately," as she reached out and moved one of her pawn pieces to her hand. "That's all we can do for him," as she looked at it for a moment before she bent down once more and picked up another one of her pawns and placed it in her other hand. "As for Haru, Aquino and I will deal with him ourselves. If he's with any of the other factions we'll know soon enough, though on the off chance he isn't with any of the factions." As an even bigger smile appeared on her face, she placed them back on the board. "Everything else will depend on him." Day of Issei's first date. Haru's POV. It was around 10 in the morning, I had arrived about 15 minutes before Issei's date with Yuma was supposed to begin. Over the past week I had seen Issei strutting around with his new girlfriend like he was on cloud 9. He even showed her off to Matsuda and Motohama. The look on their faces was priceless, though I nearly blew my cover in the process from struggling to keep my laughter from leaking out. Eventually Yuma asked Issei to go on a date with her this weekend. Of course the pervert agreed and was even wearing new clothes he bought specifically for today. Of course I had transformed myself into a 13-year-old boy and was watching them from the shade of a nearby convenience store. I was drinking a bottle of soda since the heat was worse than usual today, along with a hat to keep the sun off me. Originally I was going to follow them along on their date but decided to leave that part to a shadow clone and only come around until just before sunset, while I try asking around the city again for Mr. OS. Seriously, I'm starting to think he did this on purpose or something as I started to question whether this person even lived here, with only initials and his handwriting to go off on. Clues about this mysterious benefactor who let me stay were scarce. If I don't find something soon I'll have no choice but to give up on it as I looked at the system's interface. First hunt, mission requirements, track down the sender. Requirement for mission success, head to Ko and uncover the identity of your unknown benefactor. Failure, minus 4,000 system points and sealing of ninjutsu for 2 months. Rewards, 1,500 system points. Time limit, 2 days. This mission is forcibly accepted, cannot be refused or given up. The Naruto system gave me this mission soon after I read that letter. Most of the missions the system gave me during my 3-year isolation were not as ruthless since it seemed to take into consideration my situation. Yet when it comes to things like this happening, the system once again showed me how ruthless and black-hearted it can be. Since I didn't realize that someone was watching me for 3 whole years during my stay already speaks volumes about that person's strength and abilities. But that still doesn't excuse me from not even noticing something. So this mission was a way for me to redeem myself and to actually have a chance to use my information-gathering abilities to track her down. I may or may not be able to fight her, but it couldn't hurt to at least know who the hell it was. I think I deserve that right at least. Now though the deadline was fast approaching, I also looked at how many system points I have left. System points, 6,580. I didn't have much left after my most recent purchases, so if I failed this mission I would be deep in the red for quite a while. But the real kick to the balls was that I'd have all my ninjutsu sealed for 2 months. That was the more pressing issue for 2 reasons. 1. Having it sealed off for 2 months would mean that I would be able to missing out on April and May, when volumes 1 and 2 take place. 2. It also means that I would have a significant portion of my strength sealed away during life and death situations. I've said this before, but I can't afford to die. I'd be missing out on so many things as I would have to force to hide until the seal was released, and if I've known Gaia as well as I think I do since coming here, she probably won't just let me sit on the sidelines contently after coming here. A.N. Gaia equals the world, fate, karma, the heavens, or the invisible force known to move the plot forward. Then there's the issue of Issei. A mission didn't pop up from the Naruto system to protect him. This was something I decided to do on my own. Even if I knew that Issei wouldn't die, it still didn't feel right with me. If I could spare him the pain of being impaled by Reiner's spear of light, then I will. After closing the interface, I turned my attention back to Issei. Before long I saw a girl approaching Issei, and she handed him a flyer of some sort. That's definitely Rias's familiar. I gotta say the anime did a really good job of portraying all of them. As I looked at her, the show really did do an amazing job of portraying the characters, though that was before Season 4 came in and ruined it by making them look closer to their light novels counterparts, though that's just my opinion. In my old world there was a division in the fanbase about that change to the art style, but that's not what's important right now. After giving Issei the flyer, the Batgirl immediately disappeared and Yuma appeared shortly after. Then they began walking off on their date. Immediately I went into a back alley and created a shadow clone and ordered it to follow them around but to keep some distance so as to not be discovered. After that I went ahead and dispelled my transformation and soon began walking around asking anyone I came across for my strange benefactor. Sunset. Park. Third-person POV. The park was surprisingly quiet, not a single person in sight. With the sunset as the background, this would have made the perfect spot to end Issei's first date. Unfortunately, that won't be the case. Yuma walked up in front of the fountain before turning around to look at Issei. Hey Issei, can I ask you a question? She asked as she held her arms behind her back. HM? He looked on with a look of confusion. In honor of our first date, there's something I'd like for you to do, to commemorate this special moment, as she inched closer and closer to him before looking down. Issei looked like his heart was about to pound right out of his chest. Sure, you can ask me for anything at all, he replied while blushing. As she lifted her head. Would you die for me? Huh? As the pervert's face froze stiff. He asked her to repeat what she said. She leaned into his ear and whispered, I want you to die for me, with a lower-pitched voice. The next thing that happened to him, shocking would be putting it mildly. Her clothes were shredded, growing taller and with a much more mature appearance, along with her eyes looking more sinister than anything. Her clothing now changed to what looked like black straps made of leather around and under her breasts. A thong-like piece in place of her underwear held in place by 3 thin straps. There were also black latex gloves that ran up to her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder pads with 3 large spikes on the right shoulder, and black thigh-high heel boots. Though that wasn't the most surprising thing of all. From her back, 2 black feathered wings sprouted, with a few of them falling slowly to the ground, with Issei following suit as he looked at his girlfriend. This was Yuma Amano's true form. Rainier. Fallen angel and devoted Azazel fanatic. Well, I have to admit, I did have some fun today, considering how naive and childish you are. Things could have been much worse. As she held up her arm to look at the purple scrunchie, Issei had gifted it to her while they were out shopping. Thanks a lot for the gift too, very sweet. But even so, as she spoke, her arm flashed as what appeared to be a spear appearing in her hands. It's time to die. To be honest, you were far too great a risk to us. I had no choice but to dispose of you. If you're looking for someone to blame, then blame God for giving you that sacred gear. As she lifted her spear to stab Issei in the stomach. Ding! Though instead in front of her was a cloaked figure holding a single sword, blocking what would have been a fatal blow to Issei. The person was wearing a long black coat with red cloud patterns imprinted on it. There was also a white mask with a purple tint that covers the entire upper half of his head. It had a ripple pattern with 3 tomo around the center, 2 of which were the mask's eye holes. What? As Rainier was still in shock, the cloaked individual pushed back, forcing Rainier to take a slight distance away. Who the hell are you? How dare you interrupt my fun? As she glared in hatred at the interloper. Though the cloaked figure didn't even seem like he heard her and instead turned around and looked at Issei. You better start running, boy, unless you want to wind up dead for nothing, spoke the cloaked figure. The voice sounded like an adult, though it sounded much deeper and ominous. As Issei tried to speak, but his legs couldn't stop shaking. He was in too much shock from all the things that were happening in front of him to even have the strength. If you wish to live to see your friends and loved ones again, then you had better run like your life depends on it. Now go! As he screamed, his eyes changed to a blood-red color with 3 tomo in each eye. Why yes sir! As he saw it, his fear for Rainier was overwritten by the cloaked figure, as he immediately got up and ran as fast as his legs could carry him. As the masked figure saw him off, he couldn't help but have a smile appear under his mask, though no one could see it. Then his eyes returned to normal. The masked figure was obviously Haru. He was wearing the traditional clothing of the Akatsuki, and wearing a Bito's mask from the 4th Great Ninja War. He didn't want to let Rainier or Issei know his face just yet, so for now he chose to disguise himself by using the transformation jutsu and transformed into a Bito when he was masquerading as Madara Uchiha. That way no one would suspect it was Haru. You're not getting away. As she formed another spear in her hand, she was planning to throw it at Issei. Haru immediately went into action as he appeared instantly in front of Rainier and swung his sword down. She was forced to stop her attack and blocked it with her spear. How dare a weak human like you continues to get in my way? Don't you know what you've done? Simple, I prevented you from killing an innocent boy. He's no innocent, he's a threat to this world. So says the killer trying to stab him, pot calling the kettle black. How can a weak human like you understand an angel's duty? If angels like you exist, then this world is beyond salvation. As Haru finished, they both separated and were a slight distance apart from each other. Enough of this. Wasting my time arguing with a human like you is a disgrace. Just die. As she soon began creating multiple spears of light. Haru was quickly forming hand seals so quickly he left after images. After 3 years of practice, he was now capable of forming 4 hand seals a second, though he wasn't skilled enough to perform one-handed signs anytime soon. Fire-style fireball jutsu. As he finished, he breathed a huge ball, sending it towards her. A look of shock appeared on Rainer's face for a moment before quickly dodging it and throwing another spear at Haru. Leaping back to avoid it, with his back against the tree, he saw Rainer smiling, like she had cornered her prey, and throwing another spear directly at him the moment he landed, leaving no chance to escape. Puchi! The sound of the spear piercing Haru's chest was heard. Ha 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 ha, that's what you get for messing with an angel like myself, you worthless human, as she smiled sadistically. Pump! Clack! A puff of smoke appeared for a moment, before dispersing and revealed instead a piece of wood appeared with the spear of light stuck in the middle of it. What? As Rainer was caught off guard, her instincts told her to turn around. She created a sword of light, as she clashed with the sword just inches away from her neck. Haru had used the substitution jutsu to avoid Rainer's last attack, and used it as a way to lower her guard and get in close for a finishing blow. I should have figured her instincts were good, given the differences in experience, as he knew that Rainer only lost to ICI, who was so pathetically weak, was because he got the drop on her. She looked down on humans, and that mistake proved to be fatal. As despite appearances, Rainer is a fallen angel who's probably lived longer than what the series led on. Though Haru wasn't worried, he knew that he could still win, as her instincts were the only thing keeping her in this fight. They both were locked in a clash trying to overpower the other, but neither one of them were giving an inch. You say that boy's a danger to you, but I doubt a kid like that would be worth so much trouble, so the guy who ordered it must be a complete fool to target a pervert, as he said it in a condescending tone. You shut your mouth. Lord Azazel is the greatest, most wonderful person ever. A human like you could never understand someone as amazing as him. Her eyes suddenly turned more viscous. Wonderful, now we've got a fangirl. What kind of mess did I get myself entangled into? As he went and planted his foot deep in Rainer's stomach this time, as she coughed up a bit of blood before the force sent her back into a tree. Wind-style vacuum bullets. After forming the hand seals, Haru took in a deep breath and exhaled several small blasts of wind chakra, scattering them in different directions. Some of them pierced through the stonework and trees, though most of them were sent straight towards her. Seeing the rapidly approaching projectiles, Rainer quickly brought her wings in front of her just as the vacuum bullets reached her. Boom! 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 As dust littered the area, Haru didn't drop his guard. He knew Rainer wasn't down for the count. Soon a figure leaped out from the dust, revealing Rainer, though she had several cuts on her arms and legs with blood slightly dripping from them. As she held herself in the air, you could see holes in her wings, which had taken the front of the blow for her. Damn you, human, this isn't over. I swear I will make you regret having made an enemy out of me. Trust me, you don't want to run into me again, but if you even think of going after that boy again, it will result in your permanent end. Rainer didn't reply but bit her lip with such force it was bleeding from the side, before quickly disappearing into the distance, leaving nothing but tattered feathers on the ground. As she left, he could tell that the atmosphere had changed. Most likely she removed the barrier keeping ordinary people away from this place. He bent down and picked up one of the feathers. I think that went well for our first meeting. I didn't injure her too badly. I knew she would be a bitch, but I didn't think she would be this bad. As he thought back on the kind of person Rainer is, just someone who wanted to satisfy her superiors more than anything. It's what gave her life meaning, though that blind devotion is what also led her to assume Azazel wanted Issei dead. They think that what they're doing is right and that others' opinion don't matter. They wind up ignoring everything around them and only focus on the task in front of them. As a result, they become short-sighted and die early on. People like her don't change so easily. If she keeps going on this path, it will get her killed. The only one who can probably change her fate right now is Haru. You may be a bitch right now, Rainer, but it would be a total waste if you just died. You will thank me for this one day, even if you hate me to the core for now. As he resolved himself to save her. But damn, is she drop dead gorgeous. Haru's true reasons come to light. The following day. Afternoon. Restaurant. Haru's POV. After dealing with Rainer, I went to check on Issei and could tell he was still freaking out about yesterday, especially since no one at school seems to remember Rainer. She probably erased their memories at some point after their fight. Now that Issei isn't scarred emotionally, at least not as bad as when Rainer killed him, I can leave the rest to Rias, as she's probably surprised to see Issei the next morning completely fine instead of being summoned near death. She'll probably invite him to join her peerage, or if he gets killed by Donasek later on, then she'll just turn him into a devil, though she'll probably ask what happened last night. In any case, I have more important matters to take care of, as he looked at the letter in his hand. Sigh, no luck again today. At this rate I'll never find him. As I laid my head on a table in defeat, I had failed once again to find my mysterious benefactor. Not to say that there weren't a couple of leads before, but they were all dead ends. After trying frantically for the past couple of hours, I was getting hungry, so I stopped by a small open-door restaurant, ordered a couple of dishes and a food pill, since I didn't want to be embarrassed for eating so much in public, and was left with but a soda left to drink and the bill. As for how I managed to get the cash to pay for all this, let's just say that the news of several corrupt officials going mysteriously bankrupt made one last noble contribution to society before being hauled off to court. Anyway, I know that whoever this person is isn't necessarily my enemy, but I also can't say for sure that he's my ally either. Until I can figure out his objective, or if the worst does happen, I'll at least give my gratitude to him, her, then deal with the rest later. Otherwise I'll always have this uneasy feeling in my heart. Damn it, I wish I could just get this over with, as I groaned in defeat and looked at the deadline getting closer and closer by the minute. Whoa. Check those two out. I wish I could have a body like them. They look like models. As I had my face down, I began to hear people screaming and talking amidst themselves. 1,000 yen, I bet it's them, as he kept his head down on the table. Seems like you're having a bad day, Haru, as he heard a familiar voice. Yofufu, I think that's an understatement, Rias, he also heard a familiar giggle. I went as I slowly lifted my head to see two familiar faces. It was Rias and Aquino. After not seeing their faces for nearly a week, I swear they have gotten even more beautiful than before. Wait, now's not the time for that, Haru, as he scolded himself for easily losing focus. He's supposed to be a ninja, not Jiraiya. Yeah, you could say that again, but it's nice to see some familiar faces. At least something good happened today, as he smiled at them, before laughing together with him. After a moment of silence, if it's alright with you, can we talk a little more in private? Asked Rias with her usual smile. As I looked around, I could already see a crowd staring at us, and I hear the people around us whispering some very rude things that I won't get into right now. To be honest, I don't care what they say, but I agreed nonetheless. I told them to wait a moment, while going to pay my bill up front. Karaoke. Private booth. After entering, we were finally able to get some peace and quiet. Everywhere we walked by, Rias and Aquino were the center of attention. Everyone had their eyes on them, either entranced by their beauty, or the guys on the street were cursing me and my luck to be with two women as beautiful as them, but I simply tuned them out as they were just jealous it wasn't them. I apologize for the trouble we've caused. This always happens no matter where we go. Rias was of course the first to apologize, though I told her it was no big deal. We ordered some drinks and chatted for a little while, though I could tell she and Aquino were enjoying this quite a bit. When I asked, she said that they don't get many opportunities to be able to relax like this. When I asked the reason, they explained that it was because people in her school treat them both as celebrities. Whether when they go out or at school, it made no difference. So to be able to talk and laugh like normal like this is quite a rare treat outside of the club they told me they were a part of. Though to be honest, I wasn't exactly what you would call a social butterfly when it comes to talking with members of the opposite sex. Yet here I am, talking with Rias Gremry and Aquino Himejima, who until a little over a week ago were nothing more than characters from a light novel to me. Normally, I'd have been much more withdrawn and would have probably taken a back seat when talking to girls, yet it might be because they were at least people I was familiar with despite not having ever met in person that I was able to hold a somewhat decent conversation with. I already knew so much about them I had been able to understand since I already know their circumstances. But in the case of the human world, at least no one knows who you really are. Maybe I'm putting too much thought into it? As I receded deeper and deeper. Rias looked at me seemingly lost in thought. She put down her drink. Haru, there was something I've been meaning to ask you for a while now, she called out to me. As if I had suddenly come back to reality by her voice, I immediately raised my head and tried not to stare at her breasts, which is much harder than you think when they're that size. Sorry, was lost in thought was all. Please, go ahead and ask away, as I scratched the back of my head and apologized. It's about this person you're looking for. Have any luck so far? As she asked, she folded her hands under her breasts with her legs crossed, as if she's trying to make it even harder. I shook my head while trying to clear my head and focus. No, not a single lead yet. I've been asking everywhere in town. No one seems to know anything. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, as my good mood was ruined because of that person and reminded of the deadline. Seeing that, Rias had a look in her eyes as she stretched out her hand. That letter, assuming you still have it with you, would it be alright if I had a look? As I thought for a moment, there wasn't much harm in just letting her look. Since I haven't found anything so far, I might as well let her take a crack at it. Instead of answering, I reached out from my back pocket, bringing out a folded piece of paper. I unfolded the letter and handed it over to her. Akino scooted over to Rias' side so she could read it too. Not even a few seconds passed before. "This is?" As she called out in surprise, her eyes also suddenly became sharp and seemed to be in thought. Akino, on the other hand, had one hand covering her mouth, while her eyes widened in sudden realization and understanding. Seeing their reactions, I thought, what the hell? So they do recognize it? As I waited with bated breath for them to finish reading. This might be the first solid lead I have since I got here. Maybe I should have sought them out first instead of avoiding them? As I thought that I had been going about this all wrong from the start, and should have probably also looked at it from a supernatural standpoint. Then again, I was gone for months at a time, so I probably wouldn't have noticed anything strange. Since I also didn't know anyone besides the main characters connected to the supernatural, I would have probably struggled to find someone else in such a short period of time. There are just too many variables. As she put down the letter, she slowly regained her composure, though there was still a blush on her face. "Forgive me, I let my emotions get the better of me." Akino seemed to have a mischievous smile on her face, like she found something amusing. "That's no problem, but you do recognize the writing, right?" As I leaned forward, hoping she could shed some light on this. "Yes, as a matter of fact, I know the person who wrote this." "Really? That's fantastic. So who is it?" As she said, in my mind I was jumping for joy. "Looks like I'll be able to finish the mission in time." "Before I do you mind explaining what happened?" As she looked down at the paper on the table after having read its contents, she seemed curious as to what happened. "Sure, I suppose there's no harm in telling you." As I agreed, I told them the story of how I suddenly ended up in the middle of nowhere in that sea of trees, luckily finding the cabin, and had stayed there for a bit while trying to find my way out. Then one day that letter showed up and the map that led me all the way here. Though I made sure not to mention about me being from another world, shinobis, and other parts just yet. So afterwards I came here to give my thanks to that person. If I hadn't run into that cabin when I did, then I might not have made it out of there at all. Though I don't know why he wouldn't have shown up in person and instead had me come all the way out here. Rias and Akino looked at each other before they smiled and laughing. "That's definitely Suji for you indeed, it wouldn't be him otherwise." Being left out in the dark didn't sit right with me. Cutting their fit short, I called out, "Okay, mind filling me in here please?" As I looked at them, I couldn't help but feel I've heard that name somewhere before. Right, the one who actually wrote this letter is actually a nigh friend of my father's. His name is Suji Okita. As Rias finished, it felt like everything connected. "I see, so his name's Suji." Internally. Holy shit, the Suji Okita. The captain of the first unit of Shinsengumi and Surzek's Knight. As my mind was suddenly thinking back on his story, I do remember him taking Kiba to a remote cabin in the mountains as child, where he first began to teach Kiba swordsmanship. So, it turns out I was living in his home for the past 3 years. They never explicitly stated in the light novels where the place was actually located, so there was no way to tell. Seriously, out of all the places on this alternate Earth for me to land, I wind up in a samurai's backyard. Mind blown. My god! Gaia is definitely out to get me involved. As cold sweat formed on my forehead at how twisted fate can be. After taking a moment to process all that internally, I asked her, "Do you know where he lives then?" As I hope to finally get this over with. Rias had to disappoint me as she shakes her head in response. "He doesn't actually live here in this city. Sometimes he comes to visit, but other than that he doesn't show up." Reality came crashing down again as I unfortunately remember the guy's personality. Dropping my shoulders, "Seriously?" In response. "Seriously." Without missing a beat, she replies right away. In response, I lean back. Great, now I'm right back where I started. As I closed my eyes, that much was obvious. Even if I know who he is and be able to complete the mission on time, I won't even have a chance to give him my thanks. As if realizing my dilemma, "If you'd like, however," as I heard her speak, she continues, "I'm willing to give him a message for you. It'd be no trouble at all." Really? As I lift myself out of my seat with hope once again lit in my expression. "But of course, I feel at least partially responsible for having you travel all the way out here only to leave empty-handed," as she smiled like usual, which was always charming. "Please don't think like that. It was my choice in the end to come here, so please don't think of it like that. Compared to what Mr. Okita did for me, it's just something trivial." As I spoke honestly, if it wasn't for finding that cabin, I would have had to sleep like Rintian did, and that was something I really didn't want to even imagine. Ding! Congratulations to host for completing main mission first hunt. Host is awarded 1,500 system points. As I heard the system's monotone voice, I felt an enormous weight I didn't realize had lifted from my shoulders and breathed a sigh of relief, mostly because I was able to complete the mission before things could have turned for the worst. After that, we agreed I would write him a letter of thanks and she would send it to as soon as possible, perhaps even getting him to come here in person. Though I feel as if I would want to nail him once for dragging me all the way out here and not even being here, something that surprisingly both Rias and Aquino agreed on. After finally laying down that issue to rest now then, Haru, there's something else I would like to ask you if that's alright with you. Sure, it's the least I can do after all, ask away? Alright Haru Uchiha, who are you? As she asked, her tone turned serious, and I could tell the room felt like the air was getting heavier. As expected of the Gremry heiress, being raised by a noble family really adds to the realism as he smiled internally, but shows no change in his outward appearance. What do you mean, Rias? You're going to have to be more specific. As I asked with a questioning look. I've already had you looked up. There are no known records of a person named Haru Uchiha, whether it be past or present, as well as both nationally and internationally. As she did, her eyes narrowed, as if trying to pierce straight through me. Though before I could respond, she cut me off. On top of that, one of my underclassmen was attacked the other day. However, he was mysteriously saved by a masked figure. According to him, the suspect had scarlet eyes, with a very similar pattern we had seen only once previously. As she continued listing off how I was watching said person, aka Issei, from one of her underclassmen, and how I was only one that matched the description despite the seemingly different voice I used. So I'll ask one more time, Haru, and please be honest with me. Who are you? As her voice was laced with much more seriousness tone than probably most would think to come out of the mouth of a high school student. As for me? I leaned back into the sofa. I had my eyes closed for a moment as expected. She didn't waste any time putting two and two together. Now then, how should I go about this? As a million different things swam through my head. Though I wish I had more time, it seems like Gaia won't let me have my way. A minute goes by with Rias and Aquino still waiting for my response. Suddenly, I leaned forward and opened my eyes, revealing the Sharingan to them once more. That's... Both of them turned wide-eyed seeing it happen once again, though they seemed to be more fascinated rather than afraid, like it's pulling them in. Hopefully that's just my imagination. As I continued with my plan. I should be asking you two the same thing. And by that you mean? Asked Aquino with a look of confusion. My eyes can tell there was something different about you two. Your energies are completely different from humans, that much is certain. Though that boy I saved was human, that girl claiming to be an angel was definitely not normal. You really have no idea? Asked Rias as she raised her voice as if doubting my answer. Honestly, I've been trying to wrap my head around all this crazy stuff that's been going on in this town. As I put on a look of utter confusion. So if you two know something, mind filling me in? 'Cause there's nothing I hate more than being kept in the dark. As I knew hypocrisy was calling my name. Both of them looked at each other for a moment before nodding their heads in agreement before looking back at me. The tension in the air immediately receded and Rias put on her usual smile. I'm sorry, I was just cautious of you because we believed you would become a threat. As she offered her apology. A threat? To who? As I let myself breathe a sigh of relief, for my skills as a ninja to deceive others had worked, before focusing on Rias's next words. Tell me, how much do you know about mythology? As she had an excited look on her face as if she's dying to tell me. This was truly the beginning of my adventures in this world. An hour of explanations later. As Rias was just about wrapping up the basics about the supernatural world, she asked him if he had any questions. Haru was silent for a moment as he digested everything. So you're saying that things like devils, angels, and fallen angels actually exist? Yes. And that you've been at war with each other since ancient times? Correct. And that girl Rainier is actually a fallen angel sent on orders to kill that boy, Issei, I think you called him, for something he was bestowed at birth to him by God himself called a sacred gear? Exactly. And I just happened to get caught in the middle of this whole mess the moment I walk into town. You realize that no normal, sane person would never believe such a story, right? Just as he's about done summarizing everything he's told while still holding a straight face. As unbelievable as I know it sounds to you, but that's the reality of the situation you've found yourself in. As she answered all his doubts without batting an eye. Well, aren't I lucky? As Haru looked at her for a moment before reclining back into his spot for a moment. Before reaching out his hand for his glass and taking another sip of his drink, he thought if he didn't already know so much about this world, he would have left as soon as she finished explaining, regardless of the things he saw the other day. As she judged his face that he's accepted the truth, though there is something unusual about you, Haru, she decides it's the right time to try and get some answers out of him. You mean my eyes, right? As he noticed her changing the subject so abruptly, he can already guess what she's trying to do. Yes, there are a few sacred gears with their abilities residing in their eyes, though I'm familiar with most of them. Yours are unlike any I've ever seen before, as she remembered how fascinated she was looking into his eyes a moment ago. Well, I'm sure you haven't, or anyone has for that matter. What do you mean? My eyes actually come from my family's bloodline, the Uchiha clan to be more precise. As he decided to humor her for a bit. The Uchiha clan? As Rias looked to Akino to see if she knew, but merely shrugged her head in response. Not surprising you don't know, the Uchiha clan have always lived in secret. We completely cut ourselves from contact with any outsiders. And why is that? Feeling she was finally getting somewhere. It was by the decree of the first head of the Uchiha clan long ago. The elders were very respectful of the old ways and other such traditions, and so it was kept that way. Is there any way we can possibly contact the current head of the clan to discuss this further? As Rias asked, she looked and could see sadness in his eyes. Though for a completely different reason. I'm sorry, but that's not possible. May I ask why? It's because there are no others. You mean that? As Rias and Akino immediately connected the dots. Yeah, I'm the last of the Uchiha clan. There was an awkward silence hanging in the air. You could tell either side wanted to continue that conversation. Rias was the one to break the silence. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. My curiosity got the better of me, as she bowed her head in apology for touching on a sensitive topic. Though Haru didn't mind, he knew she only asked because she was unaware, so he had no reason to hold a grudge against her. If anyone should be apologizing, it's me for deceiving you both now, and in the future, as he felt incredibly guilty to lie to someone who he knew held nothing but goodwill, and a little too much curiosity for her own good, towards him. But Haru knew that he couldn't reveal the fact that he was from another world, otherwise people like Rizvium Lucifer might come out and do everything they can to get their hands on him. However, the help of the Naruto system and the things it has in the store system, he can easily fabricate the clan's history in this world provided he has enough system points. This was one aspect Rintianyu probably never considered, since he was originally part of a noble family, and just said that it was different bloodline from his trash clans, but it's also due to the fact that Haru doesn't really have any relatives in this world. There's literally hundreds of miscellaneous items pertaining to the Uchiha clan alone, including the Uchiha stone tablet, clan records, and even down to the little things that were shown in Sasuke's room as a genin. They were originally just filler objects in the manga and anime, but this would be essential to establishing the Uchiha clan's legitimacy, at least in the eyes of the three factions, hopefully. Of course, he knows the leaders aren't idiots. In fact, they're all both incredibly powerful and have the brains to run their respective positions for literally thousands of years. Compared to Haru, who's only been training in solitude for 3 years, this plan of his might as well be child's play in comparison. I can only pray, not really since I'm a devil and all, that Gaia doesn't screw me over, at least until Rizvium shows up and reveals the existence of other worlds to the other factions. Maybe then I can finally be honest. As quickly those thoughts went by him before returning to the conversation at hand. He shook his head in denial. It's no issue, it happened a while back, so please don't ask anymore, at least for right now. Of course, she responded politely, taking his feelings into consideration. Now then, as he took another sip from his drink and decided to ask the big question, so what is the whole point of telling me all this? As he adopted a serious look compared to before. Seeing this sudden change in him, Rias and Akino were surprised, but quickly recovered. As Akino brought her book bag from school, Rias pulled something out and placed it on the table. The thing was something Haru actually recognized instantly. It was a single pawn piece. I explained to you earlier that after the Great War the number of devils decreased dramatically, right? As she crossed her arms and legs, she began to remind him of what they already covered earlier. Yeah, though what does that have to do with this? As he reached out his hand and held the piece between his fingers. BDM. BDM. As he picked up the pawn piece, it actually glowed a faint red, and to his surprise he actually heard the sound of a heartbeat go off the moment he touched it. Even if that feeling only lasted for a moment, he then turns toward the one who most likely who knows, but that was forgotten for a second as he saw a smile and relief appear on Rias's face. Was it just my imagination? As doubt clouded his thoughts for but a moment before brushing it aside, he knew that really just happened. In order to increase the number of devils, the underworld devised a method to reincarnate other beings into devils in order to bolster our ranks. You don't mean that? As Haru had a look as if he out two and two together. Exactly, that is no ordinary pawn piece, it's part of a set known as the evil pieces. It's what we use to reincarnate, for example, humans into devils. So what you're asking for is, as he finally put the pieces of the puzzle together. As Rias nodded her head, yes, I would very much like it if you would join my peerage, or more specifically, become a part of my family. As she did, Haru looked back at the pawn he was holding and back at her as he thought. Well, this day just got a whole lot more interesting, as he didn't see this one coming. Haru knew that the only pawn Rias had in the original series was Issei, though apparently that doesn't seem to be the case here. Perhaps this was an alternate version where Issei actually took less pieces to reincarnate, as he had already started to mess around a bit in this world with his presence alone. Then perhaps things like this were bound to happen sooner or later. And why do you want me to join? I thought you were still wary of me until just a few minutes ago, as he clearly remembered her singing a different tune just a few moments ago. To be honest, I was already interested in you the moment we met, and you don't seem like the kind of person who'd go hurting other people for no reason. First of all, you really need to watch what you're saying, Rias. Anyone else might jump to the wrong conclusions there. Second, you're not wrong about that, as he wasn't some sort of bloodthirsty monster who'd wreak havoc wherever he goes. That's a surefire way to get killed in a world where there are literally gods and devils amongst us. Nodding his head as a signal for her to continue. The second reason is because Okita saw you as someone with potential. If he saw you as just an ordinary human, he would have instead simply erased your memories and left you at the nearest city instead of letting you stay there. Eh? Seriously? Cold sweat dripped down from his forehead to the side of his face. I feel for some reason I just dodged a bullet there. Imagining being left out there with no memory of how he got there would have definitely caused a lot of problems for him, in more ways than one. As he thought for a moment on the significance of what she just dropped on him, before opening his mouth again after a few minutes. I would be lying if I said this doesn't interest me, and I also doubt other devils are as kind as you if the stories I heard about devils are true. As he recalled what the light novel said about them in this world, not that he would tell her even if his life was on the line. Rias didn't seem upset by that statement, and actually nodded her head in understanding. There are devils who are as you describe, cold and ruthless, who only pursue their own desires and even abuse their servants. But I can assure you that there would be no such treatment in the Gremory household, as she tried to assure him. I can tell, just by looking at Akino alone. I can already tell what kind of person you are. As he looked at her, she smiled back. Era Rias, it seems like we have a man with really good eyes, says Akino with a seductive tone. There's also a few other things I would like to mention if you do become a devil, as she began getting into the particulars of what being a devil entails. It was mostly stuff Haru heard before, such as the extended lifespan, increased physical abilities, chances to be promoted to a higher class, and the chance to have your own peerage in the future, etc. Not that Haru hasn't heard of this before, but had to play the fool. To be honest, Haru had already made his choice long ago, and for good reason. Just one thing I want to ask before I make my decision, as he interrupted her train of thought. What is that? In this world there have to be plenty of strong people, right? Despite knowing, he couldn't help but let a small smirk creep the corners of his mouth. Seeing him act like that at the thought of meeting powerful opponents, she thought for some reason I feel as if he might be able to. As she smiled back, of course, there are no shortage of powerful adversaries both in the underworld and beyond. I know that already, so all that's left to do is, as he lifted himself off the seat, he stretched out his hand. My name is Haru Uchiha, a pleasure to serve you, Rias Gremory. As he smiled at her without a care in the world. To say she was surprised he agreed so easily would be understatement, but being the kind of person she is, she quickly recovered and shook his hand. Rias Gremory, welcome to my household, Haru, as my newest pawn and family member. He also shook hands with Akino, who welcomed him with tender eyes as well. Thus, his new life in another world truly began. They talked for a bit more before time was up. It had already turned dark by the time they got out, and soon began talking while wandering the streets. As they turned towards an unpopulated area so that Haru could be spared the murderous gaze of the onlookers for a moment of peace and tranquility. Though he may have joined her, he decided to hold off on becoming a devil till later tomorrow, as he wanted to at least take some time to enjoy his last day as a human. Though Gaia seemed to have other plans for him. As he furrowed his brows, one of his shadow clones was just released and brought with him new information. What's wrong, Haru? As Rias noted his change, she asked with concern. That boy, Issei, he's about to be ambushed by another fallen angel, as he said. He looked off in the direction of the park. What? As both girls asked in shock. It's true, he's gonna run into them any minute now, as he told them he was quickly planning his next move. Swoosh. 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 Suddenly he heard something flapping nearby. As he turned his head to the left, he saw a small bat approaching them before landing on Rias's finger. As it did, her eyes furrowed before looking at Haru in disbelief. Rias called Akino. It's true, I just received confirmation a moment ago, but Haru, how did you? As she wondered what kind of abilities her new servant had. It would take too long to explain it. Time is of the essence. For now we should head on over before it's too late. I suppose we have no choice. Akino, inform Kiba and Kaneko about the situation. Tell them to meet us there immediately. Understood, Rias. As she replied, she formed a small magic circle and began talking to someone, though Haru couldn't hear it. It's just like in the anime. It's still pretty impressive. As he looked at his first actual display of magic in this world. As he looked at Akino, she saw him staring and waved back in response before resuming her conversation. Though he was interested in magic from reading fantasy manga and anime in the past, he now had the Naruto system, so he would rather spend his days perfecting new jutsu than learning magic. At least for now. They're on their way here, President. As Akino finished up, she looked towards Rias and Haru. She nodded in response. I have to thank you for keeping an eye on Issei. As she offered her gratitude. It's no problem. It looked like he was the kind of person who has trouble following him wherever he goes. Believe me, I've seen quite a few of them, as he read several manga and anime with characters like that. Though I doubt it's the sort of trouble you're imagining. As she laughed, while Haru appeared confused but told him he'll realizing what she means when he sees for himself. Less than a minute goes by before they're here, Rias. As Akino informed her, 2 magic circles appeared along with 2 other familiar figures. One of them was a handsome young man with short blonde hair, bluish-gray eyes and a mole under his left eye, which only added to his charm, the very definition of an Ikemen in the flesh, and by far one of the best-looking guys Haru had ever seen near his age. Wearing the Ko Academy school uniform consisting of a black blazer with white accents over a white, long-sleeved dress shirt with a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants and brown dress shoes. The other was a petite young girl with white hair and hazel eyes. The front of her hair had 2 long bangs past her shoulders and several others hanging over her forehead, with the back having a short bob haircut. On both sides of her hair were black cat-shaped hair clips that made it obvious she liked cats and cats love her. She was wearing the same Ko Academy girls' uniform as Rias and Akino, but without the shoulder cape. Kiba Yuto and Kaneko Tuju, Knight and Rook of the House of Gremory. We're here, Rias. Sorry for the wait. As both of them offered their greetings, they quickly turned to look at Haru, Kaneko especially, as she had managed to sense him when he was tailing Issei. She was silently staring at him for a few moments. It's you. Hi there, we meet again. I was surprised you could sense my presence last time. I was really impressed. As he smiled at her. Kaneko Tuju, nice to meet you. As she quickly finished her introduction, she pulled out a snack from her pocket and started munching away, though a small smile could be seen in between bites. Still a girl, a few words, at least for now. As he laughed it off. Hey there, you must be the new recruit Rias talked about. A pleasure to meet you. My name's Kiba Yuto. As Kiba moved the conversation forward, he stretched out his hand. Glad to move past that. Haru shakes his hand as well. Haru Uchiha, nice to meet you too. Haru, always glad to have a new member on the team, especially since I was the only guy until a few days ago. As he jokes about it, Haru struggled to put a straight face, mostly because he knew that what he said wasn't true, but also because he imagined a certain someone who, at least right now, doesn't actually count as a man. You all know who I'm talking about. As we finished shaking hands, Rias had formed another magic circle on the floor, big enough to hold several people in it. We'll take care of Issei. What will you do though, Haru? I think I'll go on ahead and see what happens. Also, I'll make sure Issei doesn't try to get himself killed again, at least until you guys arrive. How are you? As everyone sent him questionable gazes, he merely smiled at them before Pun! Disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving everyone with their mouths wide open in shock. What just happened? Kiba was the first to recover and asked while looking at the other members of the group. He's gone. His entire presence disappeared. As she looked around, Kaneko's nose twitched slightly and eyes widened for a moment before returning to her neutral face. Rias, seems there's more tricks to this boy than we thought. As she placed a hand on her cheek and smiled at Haru's performance. Yes, seems there is a lot I need to know about my new servant. What other secrets is he hiding? As she narrowed her eyes, there was also a trace of excitement, and a smile appeared on her face, as now her curiosity towards Haru only increased. Park. Real Haru's POV. As I looked on at Issei mumbling to himself, I began taking in the experiences the clone I left with Rias and Akino. As for how I pulled that off, some may be wondering. When I entered the restaurant to pay up front was really an excuse for me to keep an eye out on Issei myself. I originally thought about leaving a clone here with Issei while talking with Rias and Akino personally, but I then thought it was too risky to leave it up to a clone on the off chance something happens and didn't want Issei to wind up with a hole in his stomach after going through the trouble of saving him last time. Which brings us back to the present, currently hiding in one of the trees near the fountain like last time as I sense him approaching. Issei, on the other hand, had come out for some fresh air after leaving his friend's house, still trying to get used to being a devil. From what Haru could tell, it seemed Rias hadn't explained much to him about being a devil after joining her peerage, but was in fact still struggling to come to terms with what he is now. As he lays his hand on the fountain, he starts talking to himself. This is it, this is the park where I took Yuma when we went on our first date. It was real, it couldn't have been a dream. I remember every single thing about it as he closed his eyes as he tried to imagine it. He's here as Haru just finished. A barrier was deployed over the whole park, and at this point even Issei could tell something was wrong. As he turned around, he could see someone standing a few feet away. He looked like a middle-aged man with short black hair and dark blue eyes, wearing a pale gray trench coat over a white dress shirt and matching ascot. He also wore black pants, shoes, black gloves, and finally a black fedora. Donasek. Fallen angel and degrade villain. Well, this really is unfortunate, me running into you, that is, out of all the people in this town. As he slowly walked towards him, Issei was literally shaking in fear. As soon as he glared at Issei, his body immediately jumped back a few dozen feet, a feat impossible for an ordinary human. Looking for a way out? As Issei soon started running as he wanted to get as far away as possible. Though Donasek wouldn't allow that to happen as he released his wings and cut off Issei's path of retreat. Such cowardice, I can't abide lower-class beings. As Issei was still shaking in terror, Haru couldn't help but sympathize with him, as someone who until a few years ago had not even been in a real fight, much less in life and death situations like these. It was like looking at his old self again. Per Issei, I already helped you once, but since I don't want all my efforts last time to go to waste, let's just say you owe me one for this. As he got himself prepared and in position, Donasek continued, so let's see. It appears as though your friends and master are nowhere to be found. You show no signs of disappearing nor any magic circles being deployed, therefore I will assume you are nothing but a stray, is that correct? As he finished monologuing, a blue spear materializes in his hand. As Issei began to run away, and that would mean killing you won't be a problem, as he threw it straight at Issei's back with the intent to kill. I made my move as well, throwing a kunai with a paper bomb attached, and intercepted it. Boom! As an explosion occurred at the point of impact, as well as smoke with the force throwing Issei a few feet away, though face first into the ground hard. "Oh wow," he said through a muffled voice. "What?" Donasek had his eyes open in shock as he out an arm in front to block the smoke and wind. "What did you just do, you little shit?" As Donasek assumed it was Issei who pulled it off. "Trust me, it would bring you nothing but trouble if you killed this boy," as a certain someone should have mentioned as Haru walked out wearing the Akatsuki uniform and mask from last time and stood in front of Issei with his eyes closed. "It's you." As Issei recovered, he looked at Haru in both shock and delight that the same person had come to his aid once again. A black coat with red clouds patterns and a mask. "You're the man who interfered with Rainier, if I'm not mistaken, right?" As Donasek recovered and spoke in a calm tone, though he had his guard up as he knew not to take me lightly. "It would seem that little girl is talking quite a bit about me. I should say I'm flattered, but now isn't really the time for that. They're coming for him, so I suggest you leave before it's too late." As I opened my eyes and displayed the Sharingan, "You'd be wise to take the offer while you still can." As soon as he saw my eyes, I could tell Donasek knew something was off about them, as they gave him a feeling of worry and fear. Soon after, a red magic circle appeared and someone familiar in the center of it with her hands on her hips. Rias Gremory finally enters the stage. "Keep your hands off of him," as she said in a dead serious tone. She would probably attack him the moment he tried something. "That voice, Rias?" As he said so, he could only look on before he apparently passed out, most likely because of the blast. Slamming his forehead on concrete probably didn't help. Pathetic, thought Haru in disappointment before he focused back on the fight. "I'll teach you not to meddle where you don't belong." As he formed another light spear straight at her, Kaneko landed right in front of Rias and deflected it straight into the air before standing beside her. As he caught it back in his hand, he charged forward while yelling, "I'm not done with you. BZZZT. BZZZT. Boom! Before he got close, a few magic circles appeared in the air and lightning descended from the heavens and causing an explosion in front of Danasik, sending him and his hat back before stabilizing himself. Akino walked out from between the trees with lightning still charging through her hand along with her trademark smile. Danasik was kneeling on the floor from that last attack and looked straight at Rias. "That hair, you're from the House of Gremory," as he finally came to a realization. "My name's Rias Gremory, and who are you? Other than a fallen angel?" she asked with an air of confidence stemming from her noble family. As he dusts his hat off, he regains his cool well, who knew? This town is currently under the control of the next head of the great Gremory family. "So he's a part of your household, I take it?" As he refers to Issei lying on the ground unconscious. "If you bring any harm to him, you will get no mercy from me. I apologize for the misunderstanding, though it's unwise to let your servants run loose like this. Next time he's out for a stroll, he might run into someone less cordial than myself." "I appreciate the friendly advice. Bear in mind, if anything like this happens again, I'll make you regret the day you crossed paths with the House of Gremory, my friend," as she glared at him. "No offense to your noble household, but you should bear in mind that the same thing could be said to you," as he spread his wings and lifted himself slowly into the air. "As for you, human, for now I'll thank you for the warning earlier, but don't forget the same goes for you. As a token of my gratitude, I'll let you off the hook today. Don't assume I'm as weak as that boy lying over there. The next time you try to threaten me, it won't end as you think it will," as Haru replied and glared at him one last time. "My name is Danasik. I pray that you and I never again cross paths." As he gave his name, he undid the barrier and left nothing but feathers littering the ground. As Rias, Akino, and the others approached the unconscious Issei, they checked, but there were no serious injuries. "That was a close call. I can't believe he actually ran into a fallen one," as Akino looked on at Issei. "He's lucky, that's for sure," muttered Kaneko as she poked at the pervert with a stick she pulled from seemingly out of nowhere. "Indeed, I suppose we have you to thank for. Things could have turned out much worse if you hadn't been watching him, Haru," as she turned towards me and offered her gratitude once again. I removed my mask. "Same here, Rias. Thanks for not blowing my cover like that, and besides, as I walked closer to them, I just didn't want all the effort I put into saving him last time go to waste. In any case, I thank you for all you've done, as expected of my new servant," as she gave him a warm smile to which he smiled as well. "Kaneko, take him back to his home. I'll explain things in more detail to him first thing tomorrow after school." Right as she was about to pick him up, Haru held out his hand to stop her. "I've got this. I can keep an eye on him until morning." "But doesn't that mean you'll be—" "I don't mean me specifically. I mean as I looked out into the trees, someone came out from behind one of them. To say the looks on the girls' faces were priceless would be an understatement. He's referring to me. Another me appeared wearing the same clothes I had until a little while ago. I made a few shadow clones to guard the perimeter in case something happened, though when I found Kiba was on standby outside the barrier, I figured I could leave it to the pretty boy and so release the rest except for this one." "T2 Harus?" Rias was flabbergasted at what was happening in front of her. Era, are they twins?" Akino was the same, but she hid her mouth behind her hand with her eyes wide open. "They smell exactly the same. Both of them are Haru." As Kaneko was seeing it, she was still working on believing it. Haru, what is going on?" As Rias tried to regain her composure, but it proved difficult to do so as her curiosity reached new heights. "It's one of my clan's techniques. I prefer to get into more details another time, but for now I'm gonna let him watch over Issei for tonight. Hope that's alright with you." "Alright, I suppose that's alright," as she coughed, and, at least tried to, regained her previous mature image. As I signaled the clone, it nodded in response before picking up Issei over the shoulder. "Excuse me," was all he said before vanishing in front of the others. Era, what other kinds of tricks do you have up your sleeve?" As Akino got in close, she whispered into his ear, making him blush in response. "More than you think, a lot more," as he responded. He took a step back. "Well, I think it's time I headed back now. I'll see you guys tomorrow," as he began walking off, leaving the rest of the cleanup to them. "Haru, hold on a moment," as she yelled. Haru waved back in response before disappearing from sight. As she saw him gone, she could only resign herself. Though before long an idea came onto her mind and smiled in response. Following morning. Haru's hotel room. Beep. 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 Click. Why the hell did I set an alarm? I don't even go to school. As he mumbled to himself and tried to go back to sleep, only to fail miserably as once he wakes up it isn't easy for him to go back to sleep so soon. Shortly after he gets out from under the covers he begins to do some light stretching. Wearing a simple pair of shorts and a plain gray t-shirt since he liked to dress light when going to bed. It helps to keep him from getting too hot nor not too cold either while in bed, a perfect balance if he does say so. Though I guess that's not important right now. After finishing his light exercise he rubs the sleepiness from his eyes. He quickly realized two things. First, when did he ever buy an alarm clock? Not even sure this room had one, much less setting it up this early in the morning. And for the second thing. Sue. There's someone else in the room. No. Fucking way as he turned his head slowly and sees the unthinkable. Rias Gremery. In bed. Naked. Seeing her snow-white skin reflecting off the rays of the sun, it was just too beautiful to look away. Her crimson hair covering the pillow as well as the most important parts, yet her breasts are out in full view for Haru to see. Compared to seeing them fully exposed and covered in clothes were worlds apart. In fact, they even appeared to be bigger than Haru originally thought they were. The person in question was currently frozen in shock at the sight before him as he thought, what the hell? What in God's na? Bzzzt. Ow, as he suddenly felt a splitting headache going straight through his skull. It felt like someone was hitting his head with a jackhammer. As he fell to his knees and grabbed his head, the answer hit him like a freight train. Wait a minute? This pain. Don't tell me, last night she. HMNN Haru? Rias was wiping her eyes as she started to wake up. Slowly getting herself up from the bed, she yawned and stretched her upper body without covering herself. Haru's eyes changed into the Sharingan unconsciously and recorded every single inch of Rias's body as it started blinking rapidly like a camera. Now no matter much he tries he can never unsee that sight for the rest of his life. Not what the Sharingan were originally meant for, but because of Haru's panic state, a new possibility emerged. Wait, this isn't the time to play around like this, writer. A few moments later. What is she doing here? As he can pretty much guess why, but the point he was making is that why is she here? Haru had prevented Issei from dying, so Haru thought this scene wasn't supposed to happen, but instead of Issei it somehow switched over to him. This was completely outside of his expectations and in fact should be out of the realm of possibility. Arias, what is going on here? Please explain before I lose what little reason I have left, as he tried to calm himself down. Despite all the ninja training he had gone through to hone his mind and body in the past 3 years, nothing could have possibly prepared him for this moment. Even in his previous life he never even had a girlfriend and was merely on the level of friends when it came to other girls his age. So to say that the sight of seeing the Rias Gremery naked and in his bed was more than poor Haru's brain could handle would be a massive understatement. Rias, seeing Haru's panicked face, giggled before smiling at him. Good morning, Haru, this is real, just so you know. To answer your question, I came here last night after what happened to finish making you a devil. But you were asleep by the time I arrived, so I thought I'd let your body adjust to it with me. Then, why in the world are you naked? As he asked, though he already saw the answer coming a mile away. I can't sleep unless I'm completely naked, as she took a pose like she had from the anime. Now that that's out of the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Rias Gremery and I'm a devil. As well as your master, you're mine now. Nice to meet you, Haru Uchiha. As she finished she gave him a smile showing her joy. There was only one thing going through Haru's mind at that very moment. What have I done? Just let me ask you one thing. But of course, ask me anything, as she took a seating position and looked down at Haru. Can you please cover yourself before I lose control and pass out from being able to see everything? In that case, want me to stand up so you can get a better view? Before he could answer she already rose to her feet as Haru did the only thing he could. He turned around and didn't dare to look back, lest he desired to die a second time, which he had no intention of letting happen anytime soon. As his mind was a mess, Rias went to the nearby table where her clothes were neatly folded. Has she finished putting on her panties better? How's your body feeling? There shouldn't be any discomfort, I take it, before turning back around, though Haru still had his back to her. As she saw this she knitted her brows together. Turn around, as she ordered him. He had no choice and slowly turned around. At least it was better compared to a moment ago. Other than the insane headache I got just a moment ago, I don't feel anything is different as he held one hand to his head as the pain was slowly subsiding. I forgot I can't say his name anymore from now on. This will take some getting used to. I see, you must have said his name while in shock, though that's only natural since you're now officially a devil. You'll get used to it eventually as she put her hands on her hips. Next she grabbed her bra, not even minding that Haru was watching her. Your body is amazing, I didn't expect that. I thought it would take more time for the evil piece to adjust, but it synchronized with you so perfectly that you managed to recover in just one night as she shifted them around before properly filling them out. As for Haru, he was still trying to cope by temporarily escaping reality, but her words brought up a very good point which he had been meaning to ask the system for an explanation. I thought so too, system, how come I was able to adapt to it so easily? As he asked, the answer he received was actually pretty simple. Host, system had already made preparations from the moment you discovered what this world was in the event should the host decided to no longer remain human. Makes sense, but won't the evil piece detect your presence and reject it automatically? Or even worse, lead a certain someone to detect your existence? As this was the next major concern for Haru. Host has no cause for concern, as the Naruto system was awarded to Host by the heavenly laws. No other beings other than Host will be able to detect the system's existence. At this, Haru breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks to the system's preparations, it seemed there would be no issues with Haru becoming a devil. Reminder: Host, due to becoming a devil you are susceptible to the same strengths and weakness they possess. System would advise caution against anything related to the holy element and other such objects in the future. Though he may have spoken too soon. Figures, not like I can get around that. I'll have to be more careful from now on. Hey! Huh! What? As he heard a scream, he lifted his head. He had dropped at some point while listening to the system's explanation. As he saw Rias had her back to Haru and pulled her hair to the front. Would you do this for me? As she asked him to clip her brow. Oh, sorry, of course, as he got up and stood behind her. He had never been this close to a girl in his life, much less hooking on a brow for someone after they slept, without his consent, together. Still feels as if all of this was nothing more than a dream. One that he'd hoped would soon wake up from any minute now. So, let me ask again, why is that you slept with me? Tell me for real, as he tried his best to calm down. I just told you I can't go to sleep unless I'm completely naked, though to be honest it was also to heal you if the evil piece had some trouble getting used to your body. So I held you close and used my magic. It only works if we're undressed. As she finished, Haru had just finished snapping the bra into place, though he was still blushing at the sight of Rias in her lingerie. My god, I think that makes her look even sexier. As he looked at the view, the anime and light novels pale in comparison to the real deal. As Haru took a deep breath to try and simmer down his boiling blood before a thought crossed through his mind, then looked at Rias and asked with a tone of uncertainty, nothing happened, right? As she took a moment before she lightly laughed. You don't have to worry, we didn't do it, I'm still a virgin. As she smiled at his reactions. I knew that, but had to be sure, otherwise I don't think I could go on living anymore. As he couldn't help but notice that everything is going nearly exactly the same in the series, though obviously him instead of Issei. How things could possibly play out this way is something he'll probably never figure out. Now what's with that face? As she startled Haru as she placed her soft hand under his chin and turned it towards her. You should be smiling, this world is magical. As she caressed his face, to be honest it still doesn't feel real. Something like this can't possibly happen in real life. Me being a devil is actually true? Because right now I don't feel any different. As he spoke honestly. So far he can't actually feel anything different about himself that could be considered out of the ordinary. Perhaps he'll find out soon enough once he gets himself out of this crazy situation. Yes, it's true, this isn't a dream, love, because I am one too. I also told you I'm your master. As she left all but one finger on his mouth. I like the name Haru, I'll let you keep it. Great, what in the hell have you gotten yourself into now, Haru? More importantly, was it worth it? As she finished dressing herself, much to Haru's relief, both to his body and soul, that he didn't lose control. Even so, he was pushed to the brink more than once by this red-haired devil. And something tells him this won't be the last of it. Now that that's out of the way, I need you to do something for me, Haru. Seeing her act so normally frustrated Haru to no end, though, as there was nothing he could do but sigh before asking, sure, what is it you need, Rias? As he finally regained some of his composure. As she laid a hand on her hip and smiled at him. Do you mind walking me to school? He would soon realize how foolish he was to drop his guard down. Co-Academy. Haru's POV. There is no freaking way. Who the hell is that guy? He looks so cool. Is he Rias's? No, it can't be true. I've seen him around town, he's the unofficial Black Prince. Some people have seen him hanging out with Rias and Aquino for a night out on the town. So it's not only one but both great Wenisamas have been taken? It can't be true. These were just some of the things I heard people talking along the way, and as we got closer to the front gates the more absurd things got. First of all, what's up with the whole Black Prince thing? I've only been in this town for a little over a week and already people were calling me that. Of course it makes sense with my black hair. I know I'm at least above average when it comes to looks and what I've acquired from all the years of training I had. Okay, they're right, so I'll let that one slide. As for Rias and Aquino, we weren't even trying to hide, so quit making it sound like we did something perverted, you damn horn dogs. As I sighed for what was probably the nth time today, I looked towards Rias, who appeared to be unfazed by what they were all saying, earning a bit of praise in my book at her ability to keep a straight face through all this. If this is going as well as I think it is, then I'll probably be enrolled in this school eventually. Not looking forward to the gossip, that's for sure, which was one of the things I hated the most about going to school and never hearing the end of it. As we arrived at the front gates of Ko, I think I'll have to stop here, Rias, as I stood just a few feet from the entrance. She turned to look at me for the first time since we started walking. I suppose so, but make sure to stop by the clubroom after school. It's in the old schoolhouse behind the main campus. Though I'll have you enrolled here soon enough, so that you can come and go without issues. Called it as I knew she would do that before I rubbed my neck. Sure, I'll see you later, Rias. Need to get some breakfast. See you later, Haru, and I expect you to explain those abilities of yours when you arrive. Just so you know, I won't just spill everything. I'm entitled to some secrets at least, otherwise forget it. Very well, and with that we went our separate ways. I immediately found a corner to hide in, transformed to evade the public eye, and bolted to the nearest restaurant. Afternoon. Old school building. I already saw the old school building a few times while I was keeping an eye out on Issei. Since I was human and at the time wasn't any sort of threat, I could see the entire campus from every angle, though I could tell there were several barriers in place. Some were for defense, others were for detection against magic from what I could tell. But the one on old school building was one that was designed to keep regular humans away from it, though it's to be expected given the nature of what they actually do here. It was a 3-story building with the 3rd story serving as the clock tower. It was painted white, though it was chipped in some areas. A black roof with vines sprouting out and covering the 2nd floor in some areas. It made it look really creepy and would make people feel uncomfortable to stay near it for too long. As I went through the front doors, it looked exactly like in the anime. The interior was entirely made out of wood and was much more modern compared to its exterior, though I didn't stay for long to look at it. Now where are they? As I closed my eyes for a moment, before hearing the sounds of movement coming from up on the 2nd floor. Found them as I began walking down the hall. I passed by what I assumed was Gasper's room, considering the keep-out tape and padlock were a dead giveaway. As I stood in front of it for a moment before deciding to try something, I activated my Sharingan and tried to see if my Sharingan could pierce through it. However, a few seconds later I closed my eyes and sighed in defeat. I could tell someone was definitely in there, but I think because of the heavy seal placed on the door didn't let me penetrate any further. There's also the chance that since my knowledge and experience on magic was quite limited, that I don't fully understand the seal at all. I could stay here all day and debate the cause, but I shouldn't keep Rias and the others waiting either. I guess it had to be if they wanted to restrain Gasper's powers. But I'll be seeing you soon, Gasper. Till then, take care. Deciding to leave it alone for the time being, I merely smiled before hiking upstairs to the 2nd floor. As I finished, I made my way around the corner and could see the Occult Research Club doors in front of me. As I got closer, I could already hear voices coming from inside. Kaneko Tuju is a first year and a valued member of the Occult Research Club. My friend Issei here thinks he might know you, as I could already tell that was Kiba's voice. I could be wrong, and that was Issei's voice. Now there's only one person left, though he seems to be running a bit late. Someone else? Who? Guess that's my cue as I stood in front of the door and grabbed the handle. He's here. As I twisted it, I could hear Kaneko's voice from the other side. As I entered, it looked exactly as what I saw in the show. The entire room was wood-paneled along with Victorian-style couches and chairs along its walls. One side was built with a shower, and judging from the running water, Rias was in the middle of taking one. The room was lit with candles instead of actual lights, but with my eyes that wasn't an issue. I asked the system, and apparently concerning my eyesight it was just basically giving me night vision, but that wouldn't interfere with my use of the Sharingan, which was an unexpected bonus in my book. After thanking the system for everything it has done for me, it also helped to explain why the system was non-responsive after finding out we were in the DxD universe for a while. Back to the room though, there was also a large Gremory family magic circle that would be used later on. Hey, sorry I'm late, got a little lost as I offered an apology. Kiba was the first to speak up. No, not at all, we just arrived ourselves, welcome, as he shook his head before smiling. It seemed like every move he made would look okay. So, who's the pretty boy? Issei pointed at me and I could tell there was some apprehension and jealousy written all over his face. Well, I suppose this is the first time we've met outside the usual circumstances. The name's Haru Uchiha. Nice to meet you, Issei, as I offered my hand out along with a slight smile. I'm sure, nice to meet you too, my name's Issei Hairu, as he grabbed my hand and shook it, though there was a look of confusion on his face. To be honest, it looked pretty funny and could count as payback for all the effort I put into saving his life twice. It's good to see you both as well, Kiba, Kaneko. Same here. Welcome. As both of them offered their greetings, I turned my head to the sound of running water. Issei does as well and could already tell what he was thinking just by the perverted look on his face. Your clothes are laid out when you're ready, Ms. President, I heard Akino's voice from behind the curtains. Thank you, Akino, followed by Rias. I just heard Rias take a shower. I love this club, as Issei screamed out with a blush on his face. I went temporarily deaf from being so close. Damn it! Can you not scream it straight in my ear, man? I nearly lost my hearing from that as I covered my ear for a few seconds before it recovered. It's not polite to spy, as I looked towards Kaneko and saw her still eating her chocolate bar, but could tell there was a slight scowl on her face per Kaneko, as I knew that scream affected her the most out of everyone here. Who is that? As we turned around to see Akino come out from behind the curtain. I didn't see you there though. As she looked at me, she smiled even brighter than at Issei, though that could have been just my imagination. As she laughed like usual before walking over and freaking out Issei, it's okay, I won't bite. You're the new guy, huh? It's nice to meet you, as she bowed her head in greetings before lifting them up and her breasts visibly shaking from even the slightest movements. There's nothing to be nervous about, everyone here is super nice. I'm Akino, I'm the vice president, before giving one of what I assumed were one of her friendly smiles. You probably couldn't tell the difference between the two unless you really got to know her. I'm Issei Haidu, and I promise I'm not always this awkward, as he scratched his head and blushed in embarrassment. Issei seemed to be caught up in his own imagination. As I knew what was coming, I covered my ears just in time. This is the greatest club ever, I'm so glad I'm me, as Issei screamed at the top of his lungs with a perverted look on his face. As Akino ignored him, she turned to me. Hi Akino, good to see you again, and I offered my greetings. Yofufu, same here Haru, it's so nice to see you again, as she offered me an even brighter smile than she did with Issei. This time I was sure that it wasn't my imagination. A fact that didn't go unnoticed in the brown-haired boy's eyes, though I decided to ignore it for now. Sorry to keep you waiting. As Rias stepped out of the shower, she was still in the middle of drying her hair with a towel. I know it's terribly rude, Haru, but I didn't have a chance to wash after leaving your place. Please don't worry about it, it's understandable why you Choi. As I was speaking, a fist comes from the side, though I caught it with my hand just in time. Bastard, how the hell did you manage that? As I look at Issei, I could see jealousy and tears running down his face. Rias, be more specific. No, on second thought don't say anything. As I'm surprised at the amount of strength Issei put into his fist. What are you trying to hide now, huh? Spill it or I'll kill you. As Issei uses his other fist, I decided to end this. As I aimed for his leg, sweeping him off his feet, he goes, before slamming his back onto the floor hard. Ah wow, as he groaned in pain, I looked over him. Have you managed to calm down, kid? Who you calling a kid? You don't look much older than me. As Issei got back to his feet. She dropped in unannounced at my place, Issei, so don't jump to conclusions. But we did sleep together, you know, Rias chimed in. She just made things go from bad to shit in an instant. You are not helping, Rias. I'll kill you. As Issei started fighting me again for a few minutes, though he was still a newbie when it comes to fighting. In the end, Issei was left with minor bruises and aches as I threw him over half a dozen times before calming down and explaining what happened. Rias just seemed amused at our antics. I swear one day I'm gonna get you for this, Rias, was what my eyes said when I looked at her. I don't know if she understood me, but she nodded her head in response. Well, now that you've arrived, I think everyone is here, as she finished drying her hair with a towel she handed to Akino before walking to her desk. We'd like to officially welcome you two into the Occult Research Club, though Haru will be officially joining the school as a second-year student soon in the next couple of days. Great, just what I need, another pretty boy. As Issei was still slightly irritated at me for earlier, even though I explained what happened. Issei can really hold a grudge when it comes to things about women, that's something I didn't know. But you should know the name of the club is just a front, it's supposed to look as some sort of hobby. Okay, so what is it really? As Issei seemed to have regained focus. Well, since you asked, I'll be frank with you. I'm not the only devil here, Issei, as Issei seemed to finally be putting two and two together. Wait. Are you saying that's what all of you are? Though instead of answering him, Rias continued explaining the man who attacked him was a fallen angel. She then goes into detail about devils, angels, and fallen angels and all the differences between them. This is mostly the same thing she explained to me, but Issei looked like he was quickly losing track of the conversation. Remember Yuma Amano? That got Issei's attention in a heartbeat as his eyes widened in realization. Of course you do, how could you forget? You two dated for a little while, didn't you? As she narrowed her eyes. As I looked at Issei, I could tell he was shaking, though whether it was in fear or anger was anyone's guess. Where did you hear that name? Never mind, I don't want to know. Look, I'm not sure how you know so much about my life, but I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable here, so maybe we should just, though. Before he could leave, Rias took something off of her desk and made Issei stop in his tracks. A picture of Yuma and Issei together. Yuma? That's right, it wasn't a dream, Issei, she's real. I can attest to that. She tried to stab you after all, as I raised my hand. I love this picture of you too, you remember it, don't you? As Rias smiled, of course I do, but how is this possible? Asked Issei. The girl you went out with is also a fallen angel. She's made up of the same elements as the being who attacked you last night. But that's the thing, did I meet her? Matsuda and Motohama don't remember anything about her. And why isn't her number in my phone anymore? We can erase human memory, as she gave him a simple answer, his mouth wide open in shock. It usually ends up being the best thing for everyone. As he looked down at the photo, Rias continued her explanation. After a fallen angel accomplishes her goal, she erases all memories and records of herself from everyone around the target. Wait, what goal? As that was another part that caught Issei's attention. You mean Yuma? She needed to kill you, but only after she figured out whether or not there was something within you that was dangerous or threatening. Once that was verified, you were to be stabbed through the middle, with a spear of light. Makes me wonder if me possessing the Naruto system, would they consider me threatening? It's definitely not a sacred gear, so now it would still be considered threatening in their books, even if they don't know what it is exactly. As Haru thought about it but quickly dismissed the idea before listening in again. This power can be so uncontrollable that some who have them become a threat to those in the underworld. Issei, please hold up your left hand. Oh crap, I guess I spaced out there for a second. Oh well, it's not like it wasn't anything I haven't heard before. As I looked at Issei, he was holding up his left hand and still confused about the whole thing. As Rias sat on the desk, she held a finger close to her mouth. Close your eyes and think of the part of your body you feel is the strongest, then focus hard on that strength. Wait, so we're doing this now? That's a lot of pressure, as Issei was embarrassed to do this in front of others. It will get easier if you focus, as he replied with alright, focus, as he tried to concentrate but was easily distracted by Rias's body and could see her panties. Issei, focus, otherwise this is all pointless. Do you need another beating? As I sternly warned him, he shivered before going back to trying. In the end, though the result was the same, he couldn't awaken his sacred gear, at least not right now. He was soon on knees thinking he's a weak soul, which isn't technically wrong either. Are you sure this isn't some mistake? I mean, I'm not that cool, he asked as he looked up at the others. A fallen angel found you threat enough to try and kill you twice. It's not a mistake. Oh yeah, and then she nearly jammed a glowing rod in me and somehow I'm still here. How does that work? There's more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt up in our philosophy. You'll just have to adjust your mind and accept reality as it is. Because now you're in this shit knee deep, Issei, as I spoke up and thought of my own experience from 3 years ago when I was just like them. You're so not helping, man, though Issei was still not too keen on listening. Haru's right though, Issei, as she pulled out one of the flyers I had seen plenty of times across the city. Even Rias's familiar gave me one. But at the time I didn't really have an intention of using it, so I left back in my room. Wait a minute. Was that how she got into my room and turned me into a devil without realizing? That's definitely possible, or in fact it should be the only explanation for how she got in so easily. It might also because I'm not so good at sensing magic yet. That's another possibility. But I thought it only worked when you use your thoughts and feelings to activate it. Perhaps there's more to it than what was said in the light novels and manga. This requires further investigation, as my thoughts wandered off. And so that day you were revived and reborn as an honored member of the House of Rias Gremory, daughter of the great and powerful devil, the Marquis of Gremory, as she showed off her wings to Issei, leaving him in shock while my eyes widened at seeing them in person. Which means you are now my devil servant, as she seemed to be genuinely happy about it. So that's what a devil's wings look like. Impressive. As I offered praise, Rias turned her head to me. Thank you, Haru. Don't forget though, you're also one of my devil servants from now on. As she did, the others ORC members got up from their seats and surrounded Rias, leaving only me and Issei on the other side alone. Isn't this so exciting? You're both really one of us now, as the rest of them unveiled their wings as well, which freaked Issei out a bit. Though what happened next really surprised me. As I felt my back getting heavier, I turned around to see a pair of devil wings of my own, though thankfully they didn't tear through my clothes, though I'm still unsure of how that works exactly. Unbelievable, as I touched them, and they felt kind of like leather, and yet reminded me more of a bat's wings, to be honest. We're glad to have you both here. Welcome, Haru, Issei, as I saw them all smile. Even Kaneko, whose face is usually stuck on default settings, is smiling at us. Now then, how do I retract them? Oh, there we go. As I concentrated, my wings retreated back into my body somehow, probably magic. We waited for a few minutes as Issei got used to it, and accepted reality for what it is, like I said earlier, before continuing. The way this works is we grant power to humans for a price we both agree on and then seal with a pact. It used to be people would draw magic circles to summon us, but that became too complicated. Nowadays we make house calls and personal deliveries. Oh, that makes sense, as he seemed to agree with her on that. Now then, it's about time we get down to you two making your own pacts. Issei, like you, Haru was also turned into one of my servants last night, so the both of you can be considered equals, so please try to get along with him. Right, if you say so, President, as he finally seemed to calm down, and was at least no longer hostile to me. Good, I'm glad to hear that, as she looked at Kiba, who then proceeded to take something out from below the table along with 2 duffel bags. They were stacks of flyers like the one I got last time, only packed together by the dozens. We'd have to go out and distribute the flyers ourselves. As I kneeled down to look at them, Rias took the seat next to me on the couch. Ordinarily we'd have a messenger demon make the run, but as new servants I think it will benefit you both to learn what all goes into this. I suppose so, we'd have to learn it at some point, so we might as well start now, as I was preparing to put away the flyers. If you do well, you may get to have a few servants of your own to help in any way you like, as she whispered into our ears, making us both blush in embarrassment, but for obviously different reasons. Why the hell is she doing it to me too? I'm into that. I want some servants. As he and I both got up, she reclined back into the couch with her arm resting on top. Like I said, that all depends on your efforts. As she saw the perverted look on Issei's face, she already knew what he was thinking before he started mouthing it off to himself, and Rias too. As I recovered from earlier, I already knew what I would do with my evil pieces like Rentianyu before me. I could probably revive the Akatsuki, as I mumbled out loud on purpose. Rias seemed intrigued. Akatsuki? What are you talking about? As I shook my head in response. Forget it, it's nothing major right now, just something to look forward to in the future. I see, then I look forward to hearing about it one day, smiling at our antics. The great thing about servants is that you can use them for anything, as she placed her hand on her cheek, which served to motivate Issei enough as he rushed out the door and onto his bike to deliver the flyers. As he closed the door behind him, I turned to Rias. You weren't kidding about him? As I looked at her, she still hadn't loosened her smile. I told you, now you better hurry off as well. When you come back I want to hear everything about what you did last time. Right, but first let me give you a small preview, as not only her but the rest of the club members were looking at me in curiosity. As I put my hand behind my back, I took something from out of nowhere, surprising the rest of them. A scroll? Was the thought on everyone's mind as they saw the scroll in my hand. As I looked around, knowing that I got their full attention, spreading the scroll out on the table, revealing mostly gibberish to them except for the center, where there was a big circle, and in the center was the kanji for storage inside it. As I laid the stack of flyers on top of the scroll and performed an unfamiliar hand seal before. Pun! The flyers disappeared in a puff of smoke, surprising everyone. It's exactly like yesterday. Fascinating. That was tots rad. Yufufu, another amazing trick from Haru. As I put the scroll, he put it back into my pocket. I'll be back, Rias. I'm sure you'll be surprised, but I can't show you in here, so let's do it outside when I return. As I looked at Rias, she had another smile, though it was more like a child in excitement for getting a new toy. Very well. But be quick about it, I'm getting a little tired of waiting, she said as she started to get impatient. Trust me, it'll be worth the wait, as I headed out the door to deliver the flyers as fast as possible. An hour later. Outside. Rias and the others minus Issei, who still hadn't returned from delivering flyers, were standing behind the old school building as Haru was standing a slight distance away from them. Alright, I'm about to get started. Akino, is the barrier up? As Haru looked back at them for a moment to ask. Of course, no one will see it, so please go on ahead when you're ready, as she waved her hand in confirmation. As I nodded back in response and focused on the target in front of me, which was actually a wooden training dummy I used a few years ago when first learning taijutsu. As I took a moment before slowly forming a series of hand seals, but instead of going at blinding speeds like with the flyers, I decided to do them slowly for everyone to see. Are those hand seals? As they wondered what I was doing, Rias seemed to have caught on as her eyes widened in realization. No, it couldn't be. Though before she could continue, I had finished the last of the hand seals. Ninja art. Fire-style fireball jutsu. As I wrapped one hand around my mouth and blew out a continuous fire from it. As soon as it hit the training dummy, it immediately burst into flames and enveloped it completely. After a few more seconds, Haru stopped, and as soon he did so did the flames, revealing nothing but the remains of the training dummy as it crumbled away to ashes and dust. As I finished, I took a moment to breathe before turning around to see the shocked faces of the ORC members. They could tell how intense the flames were, as they could even feel the heat from where they were standing, and seeing the dummy burn to ashes only served to further their disbelief. Haru, are you? The look on Rias's face was priceless. And my only regret was that I had a camera with me to save this moment for posterity. You guessed it, Rias, the Uchiha clan were a clan of ninjas. Did you say ninja? As soon as I said that, Rias seemingly teleported and stood mere inches from my face with the biggest smile on her face I've seen so far from her. I knew that she was interested in anything related to Japan, courtesy of Okita Tsuji for influencing her since childhood. Haru, so you're actually a real ninja? Why didn't you tell me sooner, so you can vanish into thin air? Can you throw shuriken? Kunai? Tell me. As she nearly started screaming at this point, I was struggling to put on a straight face. I knew Rias was a Japanophile, but I didn't think it would be this badly. As I looked towards the others, they only gave me looks of pity. Now, Rias, can't you see you're making Haru uncomfortable? Akino threw me a lifeline as she walked in between us and tried to calm Rias down. Rias seemed to recover her reasoning, though she blushed as she recalled what she just did. My apologies, Haru. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, as she couldn't lift her head at what she just did. It's at times like these that she acts like a girl her age. As I looked at her, I knew I couldn't blame her. Unconsciously, I put my hand on her head. Don't worry, it seemed like you were into it, so I don't blame you. In fact, seeing you like this is actually kind of refreshing, though. As soon as I said that, I immediately scolded myself. What in the hell am I saying? Alright, I thank you for your understanding, as she tried to recover from her outburst, though her face was still red. Kiba then asked, how were you able to do that? I didn't sense any magic being used. What was that? What I used is called chakra, a mix of both spiritual and natural energies. Chakra? They all asked as they didn't understand. I knew this would happen, so I decided to use Sakura's explanation from Naruto to help explain it simply to them. As I took out the scroll and began explaining the basics of chakra to them, they seemed really into it. I knew the underworld, and every other faction, were highly obsessed with ninjas and was immensely popular there. Even Kaneko listened in and could tell she was really into it. Though Rias by far was the one most fascinated by it, if her sparkling eyes were anything to go by. As she constantly switched between the scroll and me, about 60% of the time she was focused on me and her smile never left her face. I guess that's what happens when you get one of the most popular things in the underworld as your new servant. And that basically explains it. I could go into more detail, but that would take way too long. So for how long have you been training for Haru? Rias asked another question. Still somehow her smile hasn't let up an inch. I've been training since young, but I started really taking it seriously 3 years ago. That was around the time when, though as I was speaking I froze. As I reminded myself what happened that day, I couldn't help but think of my family. As for the Occult Research Club, Rias and Akino were the first ones to notice it. They realized it was another emotional landmine. Kiba and Kaneko knew something was up, so they didn't say anything. They could tell that in his eyes there was loneliness, some no different from what they experienced. Soon he realized that this wasn't the time nor the place for that. Anyway, I'm pretty sure my ninjutsu is a whole lot different compared to what you guys heard of in the history books, mainly because it was our clan that discovered the concept of chakra that we decided to keep ourselves closed off from the rest of the world. Who knows what would happen if it got into the wrong hands, so we chose never to reveal ourselves until now. I see, that makes sense. Various powers would come knocking at your doorstep and you would never get peace and quiet. The first head of the Uchiha clan was a wise man indeed, as Rias seemed to come to an understanding. They bought it, thank God. OWWW. Now I don't need to explain it any further, at least for right now. As I thought about it, I already knew what steps I would take to further cement the truth, lie, later on. You'll see more in the future, that I can promise, and I'm sure you'll realize you made the right choice, Rias, as I looked at her and smiled. Remember this, Haru. I am more than happy that you are my servant. I will never regret my decision, never forget that. As she smiled, so did the rest of the ORC members. As I looked at each one of them, I couldn't help but feel happy. Despite being in this world for so long, this was probably the first time I felt truly part of a family. From now on, I won't get strong solely for my sake, but for theirs as well. It may sound cheesy, but that's how I genuinely feel right now. For the first time, I felt like I belonged here. Perhaps that's the real reason why I decided to come to this place. For a place to call home. Early morning. Morning, Issei, good to see you. Oh, good morning, Haru, as Issei yawned in the middle of his greeting as he was still sleepy. Last night, after showing off a few more jutsu like the basic clone jutsu, transformation jutsu, and substitution jutsu to the others, we returned back to the clubroom and waited for Issei's return. Though I was still bombarded by Rias with questions regarding ninjutsu and the like, I even promised to train the rest of the club in the future just to get her to calm down. When the series said she was a hardcore Japanophile, they weren't kidding. Though things will only get more hectic as soon as the rating game with Riser in the future happens. Rias then showed us, after taking another shower for some reason and Issei returning, how we make a pact and the teleportation circle. She then engraved on our left hand the Gremry family crest before sending us out on our errands. Issei obviously failed since he doesn't even have enough demonic power to teleport, which was always a funny sight to see, but even more so in person. He then left on his bike for Kaniko's double-booked summoning. As for me, I didn't have an issue. Luckily, I seemed to have more than enough demonic power to make the jump, as I breathed a sigh of relief since I didn't want to end up like Issei. My client was surprisingly easy. He was actually a middle-aged man who happened to find the flyer and merely wanted to see if devils had any special powers or not, so I decided to show him by walking on the ceiling, which really freaked him out at first, but immediately recovered, and showed him a few more basic jutsu before we agreed on making my first pact and returned to the clubroom. Though as soon as I got back, I saw Issei had returned and activated his sacred gear. He told us about the fallen angel Caliwarner before being told off by Rias to not go charging off alone. After that, Issei left, claiming he was tired, as he headed on home. I was going to retire for the night as well, but Rias asked me to keep an eye out on Issei like before. Which leads us back to the present. You alright, man? You seem exhausted. As I looked at him, I could tell by the look on his face he didn't get much sleep last night. You would too if Rias chewed you out. What am I going to do if she's still pissed off at me? Why am I such an idiot? As Issei was wallowing in self-blame for what happened. You aren't an idiot, Issei. This is just your first time, so I'm sure she'll forgive you. Try to look for the positive. As I tried to comfort Issei, it only seemed to make it worse. Where's Asia when you need her? HHHH. Bang! As we heard the sound of what was a girl and someone falling to the ground, we both looked behind us. Ask and she shall appear. As I looked at the figure lying on the ground, wearing pure white panties which were fully exposed after tumbling down, was a familiar figure. Oh, I fell down again. I'm such a klutz. A young pretty girl with long blonde hair and green eyes. Her main attire consisted of a dark teal nun outfit with light blue accents, a white veil over her head with the same blue accents. She also wore brown boots with black straps in an X-shaped pattern. Also on her neck I saw a cross, though it immediately sent chills down my spine. This must be my devil senses going off, but for now let's return to the hopeless blonde beauty. Asia Argento, wielder of Twilight Healing and future Gremry Bishop. As I looked to the side, I could already tell the perverted thoughts Issei must have going through his head. He seriously can't let up for 1 second without boobs on the mind 24/7. As I nudged at Issei, that seemed to break him out of his stupor. He looked at me and then I nodded towards Asia. He seemed to get the message as he rushed up to Asia and offered his hand. Hey there, are you alright? Oh yeah, I'm okay really. As the wind picked up and blew off her veil, Issei was immediately captivated by her. Thanks. As she offered her gratitude, Issei quickly let go of his hand and apologized. You alright? You didn't hurt yourself, did you? As I decided to make my entrance and check on her. I'm okay, thank you very much for your concern. As she bowed her head in gratitude, I merely shrugged it off. As her veil was blown off, Issei went after it and gave it back to her. That was very sweet of you. As she offered another thank you to Issei. Please, it was nothing. As he tried to come up with something to keep the conversation going. Though before he makes a fool out of himself I decided to, but and you don't seem like you're from around here. Are you new to town? As she turned to me, yes, actually, I'm a little bit lost, so you think you can help me out? Though as she did, Issei was glaring daggers at me. Before his eyes could burn a hole through me I decided to clarify, to be honest I'm still new around here myself, but my friend here can show you. He's been living in this town his whole life, so I'm sure he can help you better than I can, as I patted Issei's shoulder and gave him a small wink saying I've got you. He seemed to get the message as he started smiling and soon began making small talk with her as we walked along. She told us that starting today she was being assigned to serve the church in town, which I knew was really under the control of Rainier and her army of exorcists. I could have taken care of them, but that would be way too high profile and may bring about unwanted attention and headaches later down the line, so I have no choice but to follow the plot for now. One of them being a certain fallen angel with way too much time on his hands. Though I'll be damned if I'll let them kill Asia. We stopped by and saw her heal an injured kid before dropping her off a ways away from the church. She tried to offer us some tea, but we politely declined as we parted ways there. Though Issei couldn't tell at all, I knew the fallen angels were watching us. Though I acted like I remained unaware as we said goodbye to Asia, heading for Ko Academy.